This time I'll call our budget workshop to order and we will get started. I'll do first by introducing our town manager or Mr. Holland. Who's gonna take the microphone first? And we'll do our invocation and our pledge of allegiance at the formal meeting. So I'll turn it over to okay.
The annual budget is always the most fun part of the year.
Yes.
We did receive some questions from a couple of the commissioners on the budget. I want to sort of go through them first, and then we can answer anything else. Commissioner Bellflower sent us several questions. What I'll do is I'll read them so that you hear what the question was, and then the answer. Is it possible to relocate all town committees, commissions under expenditures under the governing body's budget, since they're approved by the board? Now, the simple answer to that is, sure, you do whatever you want to do. But basically, when you approve and adopt the budget, you approve expenditures.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever department they're in, you've approved those expenditures.
Mm-hmm.
So for efficiency, it's a lot better to leave it like, we'll say like the rain garden. That money will be in Parks and Rec, so those folks can run they work with the contractor and they make the POs and they do all that, rather than have to bring it back to you every 2 weeks and say, well, we need a PO to do this, we need a PO to do that, and drag everything out. So, it's a whole lot more efficient to leave the money with the department that's gonna run that project. So, but, like I said, the simple answer, sure, whatever the board wants to do.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, sir.
So, and that's what I was looking at, was the efficiency, but I was also looking at the transparency. So if you leave the committees in the departments that have oversight over that committee, is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay.
Because they're the ones that are gonna deal in the weeds, they're gonna be out there on site working with the contractors, the ones that are doing the jobs. You guys don't wanna be out there every day.
Mm-hmm.
You got other things you're doing stuff.
Plus, what we have found is, and that slows the process down. Everything that has to come back to the board, unless maybe it's a need for additional funding, but it makes it run a whole lot smoother if they move with the project, because if you look at the budget closely, you know that we've approved this much money, and as long as that's what they're spending,
Exactly.
yeah.
And like I said, once you adopt the budget, those expenditures have been approved.
Mm-hmm.
All right, second question, what is the fund balance amount of unreserved, undesignated account after including the proposed $598,000? That's $4,219,612, or 29.5%
Mm-hmm.
of expenditures.
Okay.
Take the 14.3 million divided by that, comes up to 29. Any questions on that?
Good.
Third question, what is the added amount of COLA, cost of living, account, or allowance, money?
Have y'all got copies of the question?
No.
Okay.
That's why I'm reading, I didn't know if they had them or not.
I don't know that if they were copied on or not. Keep going. I'm just gonna run and make a copy so y'all
Yeah.
see what.
I thought you guys had a copy.
I'll be right
No.
back.
What is the added amount of COLA funding from July 1st, 2021 to January 1st of 2022? And that's because, we're not gonna do the COLA, we have proposed not doing it from just January to June. But that would be $56,428.51.
Okay.
Fourth question, in line item sponsorship, page 7. Who are the sponsors and the reasons they need $30,000? This $30,000 for sponsorship is a revenue. That's Parks and Rec finding sponsors to sponsor something that they're trying to do. So that is 30,000 revenue, not 30,000 spending.
Okay.
We'll talk about their spending. I think you have another question.
Yeah, I got another question, a little bit down, okay.
Okay. The fifth one, is it possible to move line item 10-490-8033, special events, page 9, Parks and Recreation Programs event, 10-621? Basically, Chancellor runs these are the, what they call them, truck radios, food truck radios. And since Chancellor runs those, like we talked from the first one,
Okay.
it's more efficient for him to do it than to have to go through Parks and Rec
Okay.
to get POs and stuff.
All right. Same thing, oversight.
Right. All right, the next question, under line item 10-490-1278, code enforcement contract, page 19, how does financial management workshops designed to provide potential business owners with educational opportunities in managing business finances pertain to code enforcement personnel? I do not understand the justification request. And it was basically miscoded. It should have been in economic development, not in that line item.
I read that email, and still I don't understand why it would be in economic development. What benefit it, when I read through the packet, and I read exactly what this contract is about, this has nothing to do with the town. It has all to do with educating business owners. Why would we be spending $20,000 on a contract to educate business owners?
To be honest with you, I don't believe we put it in the budget.
It is in the budget.
We,
That account, I can.
It is in the budget. It started off at $25,000.
That particular account is code enforcement contract. That is for, that account number is for when the code enforcement officers have to spend money to cut somebody's yard or tear something down, and then we bill them or put a lien on their property to be reimbursed in the future.
Mhm.
That particular page that you're talking about, it's just a typo that was put in that account. It should have been put in economic development account number. It was just labeled wrong. So the economic development account number that would have had the funding for that process is not funded because it was more than what we wanted to put in the budget anyway. So it's not included. It's
So-
not being recommended in the budget.
So the entire 20,000 is not
Code
recommended?
enforcement contract
Only,
only.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the proposed, I can't even, it's in here, this company is not going to be.
It's not being recommended
It's
by
not,
the manager.
okay, that's what I wanted to know. Okay.
let's see. Regarding police department capital outlay, page 22, why are 2 police vehicles being recommended instead of 3 police vehicles to stay in line with the 2021 CIP? First of all, and I'm sure this has been stated before, but the CIP is a plan and a guide. It's not a written in stone that this is gonna actually happen. And the main thing about a CIP is a big, huge word called if. If there's money to provide that. And so there was enough to buy 2.
Yeah,
And so the third one got left off the plan.
okay.
That's where we are. And we may say that again, with the CIP.
Yeah.
Regarding police department capital outlay, the Motorola radios, the town will enter into a 5-year lease agreement. Should this lease agreement be listed and included in the town's debt service long-range chart under tab 2. These capital leases, for some reason, are not listed as debts, or not
Okay.
reported as debts. Now, there are some things coming down the road that Drew is gonna be looking at, that may change some of the way it's recorded, but, they're just not listed as debts.
Okay.
Not for budget purposes.
All right.
For financial reporting purposes, it is shown as a liability with the debt, but not as an actual part of the debt.
Okay, I was just looking at the transparency piece, that's all.
Next question regarding the fire department, how are the air packs, 313,000 being funded, and it's through the project? They
Okay.
have been purchased.
It's part of the USDA loan.
Yes.
Okay,
Actually, 240,000 of it is through the actual, part of the USDA funding.
Mhm.
The other portion of that is part of the 350 that the town is.
okay,
And they've already been purchased, already done.
okay.
The next question regarding the fire department, what about the SUV, 50,000 being funded to stay in line with the CIP? Again, it's a plan
Yeah.
and a guide, if, and there wasn't, so it didn't make the budget. Regarding the streets, capital outlay, page 22, zero turn mower. Justification states the mower is over 20 years old, and I found out it's about 24 years old, and needs constant maintenance. How much have we spent on maintenance to date? Roughly, in the last year and a half, about $1,200. Okay, the next question regarding Parks and Rec, new line item titled corporate sponsorship materials, and this is where the expenditure part of it is.
Yeah.
And they're looking at maybe spending about $12,000. 10,000. I was close.
But what's the 10,000 for?
The banners, advertising, all the things, because if a corporation sponsors it, they want their name out there.
Okay.
It's all the banners and flyers and things that you have to print and have made to promote that sponsor.
That's if we attract a sponsor.
If you don't have any sponsors, there's nothing to print.
That's
If you're
right.
getting money for it,
Okay,
then, we put 30 in revenues and 10
Right.
in expense, so hopefully the net difference is 20.
yeah, okay. I just wanted to see how they both were working, because I think they're both new line items in the budget.
We've done it differently in the past.
Right.
But going forward, this is hopefully, and Marco can comment if he wants, but going forward, this is what we're hoping to start a process and expand it each year. So hopefully next year could be more than 30, but then that expense might have to increase some too to go with that.
So the sponsor we'll have the sponsor first before we trigger any expenditure of the 10,000.
I would think so, yeah.
Wait, Lamar?
There'll be some. Good evening. There'll be some expenditure from that line item. We may not spend the full 10,000, but it's almost like planting a seed. We got to spend money on the publication, which means there's a catalog where we go out and solicit. So that's a cost. Usually kind of expensive, but it's a hard copy of the catalog with the things people can sponsor, the events, etc. And so, but the way this works and the way it's worked in the past, as we grow it, it won't be an expense. We'll have enough to sustain the sponsorship because we'll spend, if we work it just right. I mean, we'll end up with probably $100,000, wishful thinking, but this is what I've seen in other places where you'll spend from the expenditure side and the donation side will all be the same. So we won't request an expense in future years. It'll sustain itself. We can spend from the sponsorship account, but then also bring in the sponsorship money. It'll be its own fund after a while. So that's what the goal is. You kind of set the seed with the $10,000, and we can probably get more than 30,000. But I told my staff that's probably a realistic goal this time around. To set at $30,000 and see if we can meet that mark.
So these are just marketing operating costs?
Right.
Okay, and all this is conducted by the town?
Yes, and there will be, a lot of times what we found is when people sponsor things, they want that instant gratification. So we'll actually, out of that $10,000, we'll purchase signs to go on the fences for the baseball fields. We'll pay for banners. Like, let's just say that we have a sponsor for the cotton pageant. Then they'll get a banner. In the past, we've had a problem with that because, me coming in early, we didn't realize we were supposed to purchase banners to be shown at the cotton pageant. So there was a little bit of, some people disappointed that banner wasn't there. And so now we know we have a sponsor. We can go ahead and purchase those things up front so people can have the, the materials that they're promised as part of their sponsorship.
That would work really well with the cardboard race down at the lake.
Absolutely.
That's
So,
just
we
a-
got several ideas.
Yeah.
But the $10,000 is kind of like the seed to go ahead
I
and
got
purchase
you.
those materials to be able to pull that off.
I got you.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
Oh, no, good.
All right, the next question, regarding Parks and Rec, new line item titled Heritage Park. How is the remaining $160,000 amount funded? What we understand about this is, it's gonna probably be a year and a half or so
Mhm.
for this project, and so the other half would be funded next year's budget.
Okay.
But if it goes really fast and you get everything done this year, you would just have to do a budget amendment.
Okay.
And just to give you a heads up, what we're gonna do with Heritage Park and the grant that we got, part of grant, we're gonna set up a capital project fund, just like the Public Safety Center
Mm-hmm.
project. It'll be a separate fund, so this 160,000 is actually gonna be a transfer out of the general fund into that capital project fund, because that's where the grant money will set, so it's separate. Our funding part will be in there, so it's separate from the general fund, and everything that has to do with that project will be run through that separate fund. So
Okay.
when we get to the point that we actually have, that are ready to do it and start it, you'll get a budget amendment, a capital project budget amendment to set up that project account, and this transfer of 160 will be part of that as well.
Okay.
Okay, it's on the second page, first question. Regarding Parks and Rec, line item 10/60/20/7300 museum project. The recommended amount is zero funding. The Historic Preservation Committee recommended in their proposed budget to begin work on the existing Trade Street house. The Historical Preservation Committee stated they would remodel one room at a time. Therefore, they requested at least $30,000 to begin this project. Why was this funding request not included in the proposed budget? Given fund balance is still available from prior year, approved funding under historical committee reserve funds. Accounts 10/6/20/7300 and 10/6/20/7301 in previous years for the museum project. Note the museum project is tied directly to the Corps' issued dam permit. If you guys will look at the back of tab 3, the last page in tab 3, in your budget book. This is what they,
It's the back page.
the very back page, the very last page. The back of the last page. This is what their
Yeah.
schedule is.
Yeah, I see it.
And that's what they didn't recommend anything. So, we gave them nothing.
Well,
Mm.
we've got funding in there for the chapel, which
For the
was
chapel,
what we're
yeah.
doing the current year,
Mhm.
which is on the sheet right before that. But this is what they turned in for the budget. They showed zero funding for the museum or the Trade Street house. And they've got end of year 2022, which is not, end of 2022 is not in this budget. That would be in the next budget.
I'm sure when they submitted that budget, because they updated their budget after the chapel repairs.
They never gave it to anybody. I don't know. This is what I got.
Okay.
This is what was submitted.
Okay.
Questions on that? The second question, regarding Parks and Rec, 10/6/22/9300, capital outlay vehicles, requested amount of 27,000. I must ask if there is a used truck from another department in inventory. We have a small fleet of trucks between all departments. The only problem is all the vehicles are assigned, so there are really no extra vehicles.
Okay.
Number 3, regarding Parks and Rec, under request for new position, maintenance tech 1. Justification for request states, we also intend to take over the mowing of the golf course property if we receive the requested tractor. This requested tractor, the John Deere tractor, in the amount of $26,052, not make the budget.
Mhm.
So consequently, the position wasn't filled either.
Right.
That line item is, 622, 4012, 10/6/22, 4012. And right now, there's $8,475 in that, and it probably needs to be bumped up another 6,000 to include the mowing contract out there.
Mhm.
So that was an oversight.
That's probably gonna change what happens.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's what was confusing me. And then I said, well, maybe, you know, it wasn't funded, it wasn't fully funded because perhaps we were looking at replacing the mower. Not so much the person.
And I think that kind of mixed everybody up. So instead of putting it in, we took the whole thing out. So we will need to add about $6,000. All right, the fourth question, last question, on those. Regarding the Parks and Rec, I did not see where the municipal park, all inclusive playground was recommended for funding. According to the CIP, proposed funding around 20,000, or amount 20,000. Funds have been, received, donated from the Cumberland County Community Foundation and Reed's Journey in the amount of 18,513. Plan would have 3 phases to be completed over 3 years. Again,
Same answer.
plan,
Yeah.
guide, if,
All good questions, though. I mean,
absolutely.
all good questions
Great question.
across all the departments.
Then we had, some questions from, Commissioner, Kiwanis. Did everybody have this sheet?
Yeah, I made a copy of all of
Okay.
that.
All right, her first question, from her understanding, there are several police officer positions open. What happens with the money from unfunded positions? Realistically, all of these positions will not be filled by January. Are we able to use some of the funding to fund some other positions? Very good thinking. And we use those funds to help balance this budget. But very good thinking. Great thought. Second question, we collected taxes at 98%. Had no major events last year to include the 4th of July, an Old Mill Day, more businesses and residential growth, several $1 million under budget. With the public safety building, but we have no funding for any major projects or positions. And one of the things you have to remember too, when you don't have those events, you don't have a lot of revenue either that comes in with those events and stuff. So, there, it's just, there's no revenues, and we don't have the money to expend because of that, so. And again, and I don't know if you guys, you don't get into the weeds with us, but you base this whole budget on how much revenue that you can derive. And so, and that's all based on history, So when all the budgets came in from the departments, we were $3.8 million above what our revenue was.
Mhm.
So $3.8 million had to come out of this budget. So it was not an easy task. It was not an easy task. And like I said in the budget message, there was a lot of hard decisions that had to be made. And, a lot of 2 cars instead of 3 cars and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So no mowers, no new positions, a lot of things just didn't make it.
But as far as projects, Heritage Park is gonna have to, because we got the part of grant, we have to match that, so that half of that, our portion is in here. And, the chapel spending, we've got some of that in
For
there.
that bathroom,
Keep
for
that done.
For that outside bathroom project, that's in there.
So we do have some projects that were, specific by the council as priorities. So we are doing, some of the ones that we still need and we have to do it, so those are funded.
Okay, for third question, says we have a balanced budget, but from the, look at the notebook, we have several unmet needs, wants. I am concerned that by the time we address some of these issues, it will cost causes us to be able to not fund so many other things. In short, why are we in this position? Basically, your budget it's an operational budget. The things that we know we have to do. And then, the luxuries, again, we have to derive more revenue. And this brings another point. In our talks and developing the budget and stuff and figuring out your assessments, and I think Drew just got your latest assessment, which was barely higher than last year's assessment. Knowing all the development that you guys have going on, a lot of it pertains to the way the county assesses property. And, I know that there's been some want to have a meeting with the county commissioners. To me, that would be like number one thing on the list to talk about is how they assess property. Because they're not only hurting us, they're hurting themselves. By not doing properties when things happen. They wait till new assessments, and that's an 8-year period. So, a lot of things happen on a piece of property in 8 years that they could tax. But, what is the one property out here on Dirty Whiskey?
Oh, the one on the other side of 95. What's that called, Chancellor? The 4-acre
Liberty Point.
Liberty Point.
They've got it valued at $200,000. $200,000.
And there's $3 million worth of infrastructure out there. And it's still being taxed at the 2017 assessment value of just making land.
That is one of the reasons why, not specifically that reason, but the reason that I wanted to have the meeting with the county commissioners, as we did with the delegates, because there is a lot of information sharing. I didn't want to have the meeting for like a money grab, but definitely for information sharing. So when we did our tier 1 meeting the other day, for instance, I found out that Fayetteville is building a wagon wheel baseball. I didn't know that baseball field. So where does that put us with our planning into a wagon wheel? But as a county, sometimes I don't feel like, I think we're competing with one another instead of collaborating with one another. So it wasn't like I didn't want to really meet with them for a money grab, but definitely there needs to be some discussion about what is going on through the county and how that relates to us. Specifically something like this. So, and I did want to have it before we had this budget meeting. Because sometimes they have some ideas, or they have ideas for funding or different things that they can tell us that we might not know. And if it's too late, and at this point it probably is too late to do it this year, but definitely we can put something in their ear for them to think about next year when we plan or ongoing. So the meeting that we had with the delegates, I wanted to have something like that, to have an ongoing conversation with all of our county commissioners, if we can get them, not one county commissioner here or there, but all of them collectively, to make sure that we are included in the planning, and that as a county, we're not competing with one another, but we're actually doing things that make sense. So that absolutely is a very good topic to come up with in the way that the county assesses money. So those are some of the reasons why I did want to have a meeting with the Cumberland County Commissioner, so that we can have a conversation like this. But thank you for the information.
Absolutely. And again, we need to have dates that all of you are available, so that I can give it to Amy to figure out when they're available and we can match up. The next question is, you're interested in discussing an infrastructure, parks and rec bond. Our infrastructure is a mess, and we have no money for any of the needed improvements. The parks and rec bond may help us with other things that will have a direct economic impact on Post Mills. And I think the board approved doing that at the election of 23. So
Back at the budget retreat, we talked about doing the bond for the referendum fall of 23.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe Fayetteville Cumberland Parks and Rec did bonds a couple of years ago, and that's where they're funding those splash pads, the wagon wheel baseball park. All those things are from their bond that they passed a few years ago. They're actually doing the projects now.
So can I ask you a question then? Is it realistically, I know we're talking about the all-inclusive playground, splash pad, even doing some things with the golf course. is it realistically over the next couple of years that we're gonna have money to do things like that? Or, I mean, should we even have the conversation, or will we have to wait? Because I did go back and I pulled up the bond schedule that you all had, and it goes all the way up to spring 2024. So is it realistically for us to even keep having this conversation if we won't have the money over the next couple of years? Do we, or do we need to? And see, when we talked about, and I will go back to this in our meeting, about what was needed in this newspaper or information to our public needs to know about this stuff going forward. It can't come from like a splash on the internet, on a Facebook page. It's information sharing. So we're gonna talk about this. This is information that I think our public, because we hear this conversation about our infrastructure all the time, and what we're gonna do with the golf course all the time. But good information sharing like this and a plan is an example, a prime example of things that we need to talk about. So I'm just asking realistically, are we gonna have the money to do anything with the golf course, or should we just wait? Do we just need to wait until this bond, if it goes through, if it's passed?
The major spending, we'll probably wait for the bond. But some of the smaller things that we can do between now and then, just as Bill said, as funding, is available, then we'll try and do that.
Okay.
But, certain small projects that we have, yeah, we can do those. But as far as the major, like that entire master plan for the golf course, that can be funded entirely by the bond. It might take 5 years to spend the money, but, once we go through the feasibility assessment for what we can afford to do, even with the bonds, then we can start setting up how much money we can, issue with the bonds, what specific projects do we want to fund with the bonds, and once we nail those down, then we start getting the public in and saying, hey, this is what we want to do, this is what we want to fund, help us get the word out, vote for this bond referendum so we can do all these projects.
No, when you say small, what do you ballpark, what are you considering
It's on
small?
cost.
Okay.
Just different amenities, just like what we've done with the golf course right now. I know it's temporary, but the trail, so people can use it. Those would be small, different projects.
Do you have a total amount for bonds and everything?
I have no idea. We'll start the bond process this fall. We put some money in here to do that. I think y'all still have that schedule. We're gonna try to hear by that. But right now, until we start doing that feasibility assessment, we'll assess what can we afford, and then we'll go from there. If they just say, we can afford 20 million, okay, then what are the projects that can fit in $20 million? It's not just parks and rec, streets too.
Mm-hmm.
We need about $10 million for streets. So,
Have we started thinking about the money that we're going to get from the rescue money, and where?
now, I don't see in any of the things that I viewed that any of it can be used for parks and recreation.
Well, no, I'm not talking about that, but have we started looking at where it can be used so that it could offset some of the things in areas where we could use it?
Right.
Because, I think we need a plan for that too, because when that money comes, we need to have it so that we can supplement places if it'll allow it, and then we can move funding somewhere else, because I think we need a plan for that, and maybe need the planning now, because supposedly in June, we would receive the first amount of money and I think they've given us some guidelines. I know I've got a big thick book that I've got that a lot of detail, but
The major things that we need funding for, like for instance, streets. Right now, it still doesn't say streets are in that. It says water, sewer,
Yeah, that's what I read.
fiber.
Yeah.
We don't even know that stormwater is included in that. So these are questions that our representatives are trying to find out for us. So, but every webinar and email and stuff that I've looked at says, we think it can be used for streets, but we're still working on getting that clarified. But I haven't seen the actual wording.
well,
It
so
doesn't
but when
say-
it arrives, if we've got some plans in place so that we don't just
Right.
spend it because we got to spend it, because I do believe that if we get the $4.6 million, that's a sum that could really impact us in other areas that might give us some funding for some other things in the areas that right now we can't afford.
Right.
So
I
that,
thought along the lines of water and sewer, there's that neighborhood in town, and 4.6 might not even solve it. But we could get get water and sewer into that neighborhood. I don't remember the name of it, but that wants water and sewer.
Kings Mill.
Yeah, you know, we can do something and get water and sewer to that. It might take the entire 4.6 to do it, but I know right now, water and sewer is a definite use for
Okay.
those funds.
Okay,
I mean, that's just one
right,
idea
okay.
based
I
on what I know so far.
apologize, Dr. McCray.
No.
Just wanted that thought out there so it could tie into it, hopefully.
No, but I got a comment for you, Mayor Pro Tem. In my first year on this board in 17-18, the board realized then that we needed to research the opportunities for bonds. Mayor Pro Tem at that time, Mike Mitchell, spearheaded the initiative, and we even brought Davenport here, and he briefed that board about the bond process, the procedures at length. And I still have the entire file from Davenport at that time, and that is where it stopped. But the planning process, I'm glad to see that you're bringing it back up again, because we brought it up in the 17-18 board. We knew then we would need that 3 years ago to accomplish anything in the Parks and Rec. And here we are again, bringing it back. And if it's Davenport that comes back, they had an excellent presentation with an excellent review plan to put this together.
Well, I have that in my notes, that it was Davenport and Company.
Yeah, it's Davenport.
We plan to use
Yeah,
to help
that's who we were going to use 3 years ago.
Because this is a couple of
Can
years.
can you explain why it didn't move forward? Why the bond process didn't move forward
It is-
3 years
we're
ago?
already moving forward with that.
No, I mean, why it didn't move forward 3 years ago? Yes.
At that point, y'all wanted information about bonds, and so we presented the information, and then, as Jesse said, it just wasn't talked about anymore.
So
I
the,
still kept it in the back
right.
of my mind the whole time, thinking, this is what we
Yeah.
need to
So
do.
that
And
particular,
that's why I brought it up at the retreat.
Mhm.
If we start now, we can be ready for the
Right.
23 election. If we waited any time past now, we would have to bump.
so we
to
could,
25.
it should have been, and could have been initiated had that board done it,
Possibly.
possibly.
Possible.
I think,
Possibility.
well, I think the comment that I heard then was the fact that we were looking at the big loan for the public safety building, and that if we were complicated matters by working on a bond referendum at the same time we were working on the funding.
Simultaneously
Right.
anyway.
But I think that was the rationale. I don't know why the board, because at that point in time, they did have the votes to move forward had they wanted to.
Right, they could have.
Thank
But
you.
yeah, we did have public safety coming up, and we also didn't have the master plan completed for the golf course property, because we wanted to see what do we want to put
Right.
out there before we start talking about funding.
And I think that's probably where it stops, because we were waiting on master plans to come back, Mayor. And I believe that's exactly where it kind of ended
Yeah,
there.
you brought it up.
And we didn't pick it back up until all the master plans were done. Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
Drew, I sent in a question for a statement of wondering why we didn't put some money back in this budget to start work on the golf course, maybe grading or something like that, because it's gonna take a lot of grading before we can develop it.
Right.
So we can't even do parking lots or,
Well, if we start grading on the golf course property now, it would mess up the walking trail, the temporary things that we put out there right now. And we don't have we've got a master plan, we don't have construction drawings yet in order to know how and where to grade.
and we just need to know where things are gonna set, you know?
Right.
So I was just disappointed that I brought this up during the budget retreat, that we should put some money back to bank it for that, if nothing else. So when we're ready to go, we're ready to go.
Right.
So
Madam
We
Mayor.
don't have a lot of funds
Yeah.
for contingencies
Yeah.
right now.
Dr. McCray.
So that takes me
I'm
back
sorry.
to some of the other questions, even talking about what you're talking about, Commissioner Legg. And I know this is very unpopular, and I'm not suggesting this year because we are in the middle of a pandemic. When was the last time we raised taxes? And I know it's unpopular because people feel like they're not going to get elected if they raise taxes. But if you can if the public can view this notebook of needs and wants, and there's a lot of things that are getting cut off, I mean, in the upcoming years, are we gonna have, I mean, is that something realistically we have to deal with? Because I'm saying with some of the complaints that we get about, zoning, and then I see that we're growing and we're developing, but we don't have any inspections. And then I think if they get another zoning person, they're gonna need another vehicle. Well, we can't do all of these things, if even the grading that Commissioner Legg is talking about, because we don't have any money. We don't have enough money. So realistically, is that something in the future that, when was the last time we had a tax increase?
2012.
2012.
Was it 14?
It's either 12 or
It was
14.
either 12 or 14, but it's been a while. And that is a discussion we need to have, because if you think about it, 1 cent of tax is $125,000. 2 cents, 250, 4 cents, $500,000. So, you know, that is a discussion you're seriously gonna have to consider at some point.
You know, you continue talking about more money, there's a lot of other ways too. One way specifically is you need to bring your planning and zoning back to Hope Mills. The money that you're losing,
Development fees.
the county gets all that stuff. You know, so, and you've got one of the best planners I've ever worked with here, so, I mean, you've got an opportunity here to make a lot of money. And I've worked with some good planners. So, I'm telling you, the money that you contract with the county could
Pay for a position.
pay for the positions that he would need, plus the revenue that you would get from it, from all the development that's coming. I mean, it's something that you really should consider.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
So how do we start that process, and do we need to vote to make that, to start? And how, do we know how much money that is?
Well, I mean, the process is, I mean, obviously, you're gonna have to find, how many members, 5, 6, 7 for a
In order to basically bring that to fruition, it's a couple of things we would have to make sure we understand is gonna come with it. There's about $58,000 every year we spend in the contract with the county to provide those services. The extra amount of money that interim town manager is talking about are the fees that come along with it. Because we don't process our applications, I'll just give you an example. Every time you see me present any case before the board, which is averaging about 4 times a hearing, that's about $400 per application that we aren't seeing. So those are the fees that are in addition to that. The only fees that I can generate now based on this relationship is a $50 zoning fee for residential, 75 for commercial. And that's regardless of what comes. So you don't get impact fees for that as well. But if we do this move, we have to make sure we are prepared for it, because if you get rid of planning board, you need 5 people to basically run all our zone hearings. I do know that at a point in time, if you're talking about efficiency, our board of commissioners serves as a board of adjustment at one point. You can possibly do board of adjustment and the zoning board. But just with the operation in the county, they do, I'm serving as a one-man crew. They have about 8. We would need a total of 8, but we would need mapping, which is the GIS function. We would need mailing, which is the notice function, and we'd probably need another planner. So you need about 3 people. But what he's saying is, can you squeeze out those 3 positions in roughly about the 90,000 to 100,000 annual in revenues that you're gonna get with that? And does those 3 positions added with me gives us the efficiency to operate at the same level? That's ultimately what we have to explore, but those are the things I'm looking at. So it's not just cutting it and getting this money. We have to make sure that we're prepared to make that move when it does take place.
I know that we looked at this one time before, and at that time, the concern was the cost of the equipment that would be needed, the fact that the mailings are expensive,
Those are the things that
all
add
the,
to it,
all the
yes.
things. So I guess what would be something this board could do would find out what the cost would be. In other words, are we getting bang for our buck by being a part of it, or if we take it over, or how long is it gonna take us to catch up with what we have the initial
That's
investment?
exactly what I'm saying, that we need to analyze. Now, the one key piece that is invaluable is the MIA. So right now, if we do this, it puts plan review in a position where we're not chasing developers, because now all permit comes to me. If there is a piece of development that's taking place in the MIA, it is direct connection with me and PwC. The permits have to come to me, period. So it's not a situation where a developer can massage his way to get a permit in the county when we're trying to do annexations. So that's the one key piece that we need to get control over, that you could put a dollar amount in. But you're right, if we were to explore this, we would need to be able to calculate everything out to see if it's something that we should feasibly undertake. But I do think that it's something we should explore. Thanks.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Chancellor, myself, and Mr. Reeves and myself have had this discussion for the last few weeks or months, and waiting on the right time to find out what to do so that we know that we're safe in doing it that way, so that we know we have funding for positions we might need, or office furniture and stuff like that. It doesn't stop with just the
To
paycheck.
not cut them off, there are expenses that come with it. If you're talking about position, and we're talking about code enforcement, that's a truck, that's a position. So there are things that we will have to spend to do this, but do we have the ability to work it out?
Who would be the best to work on finding out the feasibility of this? Who could we have put, without having to tie you up with this, to do some type of feasibility to find out what the cost factors would be? Do we have, maybe Mr. Zell would have an idea of who could kind of do the investigative work to find out what expenses they do pay for, and give us kind of a plan so that then we could react, and if it's something that the town could do efficiently and also not have to have a big investment on the front end. But I think we need to get all those details, and that would be important so that we could, if we did want to move forward, we would be prepared.
So Mayor, is your thoughts that we should direct the town manager to look at a feasibility study?
That would be a good idea.
I think that's where we start.
Yep. And then from there, I think need to look at both sides. How much is it going, and of course, we're paying money, but how much do we get for those bucks? And then what would it cost for us to take it over? So, yes, sir, if you wouldn't mind doing that, that would be great. Okay, thank you, sir.
We're gonna have some resistance from the county, you know that.
Yes, of course.
Continuing on with the questions, the cost of the cotton pageant was brought up. I guess you talked to somebody, you could do it for half the price. I don't know if DeMarco wants to say anything on the cotton pageant.
As far as the cost, we're going by what it cost us 2 years ago to do it, and we spent about $10,000, and we spent $10,000, but we were able to generate $3,000, in revenue. We actually made $3,000 from the $10,000 that we spent. So we know that it costs between $8,000 to $10,000 to put the cotton pageant on. From the rentals, we're talking about, the decorations, the contracts, etc. So, and I can get the actual things that May can actually spend on it, but it costs us about $10,000. But we were able to get, when it came down to the participation fees, we actually went up from it was $30,000, went up to $30 or $35, and went up to $50. So participation costs and then sponsorships actually yielded us $3,000, but we spent about $10,000 on contracts, trophies, satchels, all that kind of stuff is what our expenditures were. So that's what we're going off on.
Madam Mayor?
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any fees associated with rental of the school gymnasiums? that
We did,
for
and I don't know what that cost was.
auditoriums?
We did have to pay, we usually do it at Southview, but, the last time we did the cotton pageant, we did it at, Jack Britt, so there was an associated cost for the gym, and we actually had to pay for, and our most expensive expense was, for lack of a better word, the insurance of dealing with, children and the cotton pageant. You know, it was something that the school was adamant about us having, you know, to protect them from being sued for, let's say, anything inappropriate with the children. That was $3,500. That was our biggest expense, and something that we didn't have to do in previous years when dealing with Southview. But from what I'm hearing with the new superintendent, that's for all the schools now. That's something that they implemented, all the schools. So we know going in that there's gonna be a $3,500 fee for the insurance alone, along with the insurance that we already have. Then there's the cost for the gym rental. It used to be free at Southview. We couldn't get Southview, so Jack Britt wanted a fee for that. They wanted a fee for their tech support person. And so all of those things, you know, I mean, even with that, you're talking about $5,000 on top of, you know, decorations, flowers, et cetera. So those are all the associated fees that, that we came across, this last time we did the cotton pageant that apparently we didn't have to deal with in previous years.
I know some of the programs that we've used at the school gyms, we've had to pay an employee to be there for like janitorial service and stuff like that.
We had to pay that, and then also we had to pay 2 sheriff deputies. We did over the course of, I want to say it was 3 days, and we had to pay for deputies to be there. That's the school's requirement that a
Function, yeah.
yeah, that one of their officers had to be on site, you know, for security reasons also. So all of those are fees that we, you know, that we had to pay this time around. And on top of that, we didn't even have a budget. I think we had to pay for the cotton pageant out of program fees, so we didn't have a budget 2 years ago for the cotton pageant, you know.
Madam Mayor? So with the rental, paying for the deputies, the insurance fee, we're probably paying about $5,000 just to use the site. That's what the majority, because that's what I was trying to find out, where was the majority of these costs?
So the majority of it was actually, you know, the facility, the officers, the janitorial, the sound person for the music and the mics, and then the insurance. Yeah, so we're 5,000 plus at that point, and then you have, you know, the people that we contract to build the sets, to do the flowers, you know, paying for the trophies, et cetera. So, you know, it builds up after a while.
Thank you.
Okay, and the last question was, did the delegates help us get any funding for anything? And all we understand is that Representative Soka was doing a $350,000 bill for, I think, stormwater.
They don't have a budget yet. So if it's still in the budget, he'll give us an update, but as far as they're still in negotiating, they're like we are. They're putting stuff together, so it'll probably be a while before we learn.
So that's all we know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We got a second batch of questions. Several months ago, Police Chief Achardo addressed current vacancies in the police department. I believe he said we had 40 budgeted officer positions and 10 vacancies. It's become apparent that the pool of quality candidates has become very competitive, which in turn makes filling the current vacancies more challenging. What is the recruitment and retention plan to address these and future vacancies? I'm gonna turn it over to Chief. I believe he touched on this at the budget retreat.
Mayor Commissioners, Mayor Pro Tem. So, at the budget retreat, we did bring up a step pay plan that basically programs out an officer's pay increases over the span of their work career. It makes it better it's a stable environment, makes it better for the officers to be able to, you know, plan their career development as they stay with us. As has been the general theme throughout discussions tonight, we weren't able to move forward with that because of funding. Now, we did, with your all's authorization, get the cadet program up and running, which basically we will hire cadets to put through the Basic Law Enforcement Training Academy. That's already been very successful. We have one actual cadet in the current BLET class, and we have 2 that are in the background phase, which we're capping it at 3 at a time. So that has also been very helpful too.
Chief, how much money are we talking about in the step plan?
Well, I didn't know we were gonna have to talk about the step plan tonight, so I don't have current numbers with me. But, I think
So
I,
usually a step is like 2.5 or 5%.
yeah,
The
it's,
other.
it's,
Each step
Okay.
goes up.
exactly, it ranges from 2.5 up to a cap of 5%.
Mhm. So,
And step plans were in the past, they, for some reason, they dropped them and went away for, a starting range, a mid-range, and a max. I don't know, smarter than me, dropped it a long time ago. Step plans were fun because you could look out 5 years and say, 5 years, this is where I'm gonna be, 7 years, and
Mhm.
so on. But they got away from them, and they don't use them very often, or not very many people use them anymore.
well, there are some municipalities that do use them, and they use them well, but they're funded well. And the planning process is well. In this case, we don't have a step plan, so, and we're 10 officers down.
Basically, yes, sir.
Yeah. So what are the recruitment strategies? If we're not going to fund a step plan, our recruitment strategies are,
Right now, the biggest recruitment bonus that we have is the cadet program, which is where, like I said, we hire them, put them through the BLET course. Other than that, just the basic, what we offer as a employment workplace is the only advertising we got. Now the town does real good stuff as far as you get credit for your levels of college. We have excellent health benefits, but as far as being able to sell ourselves as a working environment in a very competitive market in the Cumberland County area, I wouldn't look outside that, because that is the market we're competing for. We're competing with City of Fayetteville, Cumberland County Sheriff's Department, the Fort Bragg Department of Defense Police to some extent. You've also got Fayetteville State, which offers excellent benefits and pay, and those things all combine to zap you of your available candidates. So, and in discussions I've had before, we could fill positions. We get all kinds of applications, it's just you don't, the volume that we get are not the ones you would want to put forward into any type of program. You would have serious problems with them down the road. We run a very stringent background process to try and provide the best candidates. When you do that, it limits you on the ones you can move forward after you've competed with the other larger municipalities.
Chief, some municipalities have started and have been for quite some time, and some of them, with offering sign-on bonuses, and then a period of time with another bonus, and then a bonus after that,
Yes, sir.
you know, as a recruitment tool. There's some municipalities that start officers at a flat range instead of some mid-range. They have a starting salary, and then it can be increased depending on credentials and education. And all of those seem to be successful recruiting tools, but of course, they cost money.
We had discussed earlier, a modest sign-on bonus for Oak Mills. I believe the number was $500 when we were discussing it. But again, cost comes into play. These things cost money. City of Fayetteville, on their 2018 benefits package, that comes to mind. They have a field training officer, if I remember correctly, would get about $2,500 extra in their paycheck for specialized field. We are only offering 2.5 only while the training is taking place. That's some of those benefit packages that makes us hard to compete with other municipalities. That all of that goes into your total package. And remember, you're selling yourself to people, qualified people that can pretty much, as long as have the right qualifications, they can go wherever they want to. To get them to choose Oak Mills, which is a good choice in my opinion, but to get them in the door so that they can see that, you have to have stuff to get them here. And right now, that's very challenging.
Yes.
I understand what you're saying and everything's based on new hires and building up momentum and everything for them to get on board and all, but I looked at some of the pay scales and stuff as some of the other counties, and what concerns me is the longevity of the ones that's been there 10, 13 years. I mean, if you hire somebody in based on starting maybe 3,000 more than the gentleman or a female, since she's had 10 years there, it seems like they're catching up with them, and the ones that are up here aren't really
Well, that's
moving
correct.
ahead.
That's
And I
very
understand
correct.
there's good incentive, and they get health insurance and stuff like that, but when they retire, does all this go with them? All their benefits and everything? Do they retain all those? It just doesn't seem like they're getting.
Well, no, you're absolutely correct in your assessment, and that's where the benefit of the step plan comes in, is you can bring the new hire on to that position, but they won't be in the same step level as the person who's been there 10 years. So
Right.
you won't have that compression of the pay scale.
Yeah.
That's where the beauty of a step plan comes in. But it does take money to get it off the ground and running, which, again, is
Well, if I'm sitting there and I'm looking, I say I've got 13 years in, what do they have to offer me? And I look over here in this other county, and somebody else fixing to retire, getting 10,000 more than I would be. You can lose a lot of good
Yes, ma'am.
employees that way.
That is absolutely correct.
Well, that would be the retention piece. The recruitment piece, is that strategy to get them here, and then that's what I was looking at the step plan
Yeah,
for,
but
that
you need to
retention
retain
piece.
them.
Yeah, that's the piece.
Oh, I see what you mean.
That is what the piece is, going with the step plan. And Chief, and I pulled Fayetteville's numbers today just for comparison. And they start a police officer an inexperienced salary at $38,000. BA degree is $2,500 extra a year. Associate's degree is $1,250 extra a year. And the lateral entry is $39,750. And I think our starting salary is, I may be wrong, but I think it's $39,618.
Yes, sir.
Yep. So, I mean, we are competitive at the entry level.
But not,
But where I think our problem is the retention part. And that's the reason why that I focused on the step plan as much as I have. And I would like to see what the numbers look like. I really would.
Sure.
I don't know if we've got the numbers this year, but we've got to start somewhere. Because valuable people won't stay if they can get additional funding from some other municipality.
Sure, at the end of the day, each individual has to make those decisions that are going to be best for them and their family. and
Right.
The ones that they support and take care of. Our challenge is to make our environment to where it will match the goals of the individual worker. You know, if I know, I've had a bunch of guys over the years, and gals, that have moved on to other places because the pay and benefits were better. Not because they didn't like Hope Mills. They did like Hope Mills, but at the end of the day, they got to pay mortgages, they got to pay, you know, whatever, and they have to look at that. For our size, we offer a great benefit package, but if I'm looking to stay here to retirement,
Right.
what is going to be my benefit? What is going to be my incentive to get there? Okay, if I'm a new person just walking in off the street, you're looking at a minimum of 25 years. Okay, what are we offering them to keep them here 25 years? That's that part of that total package that you have to look at. That's why in the budget retreat we submitted what we submitted, because that is, none of this is going to be fixed over a one budget period. This is something that's spaced out over 2, 3, 4 budgets. But at the end of the day, you can't do any of it if you don't have the revenue coming in.
Well, that's true, Chief, but we've got to start somewhere. And that's why I'd like to see what the numbers look like.
Sure.
Because there are people that probably live in Hope Mills that serve in another municipality because they like the quality of life here.
Oh, you're talking about officers?
Officers
Oh, well, we have a
We have quite a few
deputies
officers
and Fayetteville and
that live here in Hope Mills that work in other municipalities. And I firmly believe that the greatest asset of this town are our employees. And that is an investment we should invest in wisely. And we should keep them.
I am in full agreement with you, sir.
I know that. Mayor Pro Tem probably knows that too, where we work. And so that's why I'd like to see what the numbers are.
Sure thing.
And maybe this council, maybe this board would look at addressing how we can start something. So I appreciate it, Chief.
Can I ask a question, Madam Mayor?
Yes, sir.
What would it cost us to bring an employee on, just one? Do we have extra vehicle? Do we have extra radios? Do we have extra weapons?
For each position, officer position, that position is allocated vehicle, radio, regalia to
The whole
perform
gear.
the job. Total cost, if you were doing it all from scratch, you're probably, if you take the car, the equipment in it, the radio, just the radios themselves are about $5,000 for the handset. It's incredible. You're probably looking maybe just shy of 150,000 to go from scratch if we didn't already have the car, the equipment, and all that stuff.
Do we have any of that stuff
Yes, sir.
that's available? Okay.
With the vacancies,
Yeah.
most of the time, unless we're doing a brand-new position from scratch, you're gonna have the vehicle already there because it was bought 2 or 3 years ago. You're gonna have the weapon and the radio already there because it was already assigned to somebody before that person. Same
So that-
thing with the in-car.
Some of that stuff is already among the stuff that we have purchased in the past.
Yes, sir.
Is it all up to date?
Well, that's a whole nother box
Issue.
of, we keep stuff way too long, and eventually, it would probably be a wise decision to get out of owning cars and owning radios and anything electronic that has a expiration date. But that's down the road, sir. That's nothing that can be addressed in one single budget setting.
Just trying to get an idea how close we're getting, you know?
Yes.
Because
Well,
every day we're getting further behind.
From working with you guys in the past, we've already been making strides for that. Body cameras, we don't own these, we're leasing, which is good, because when they wear out, we get rid of them, get new ones, and our cost stays the same. Same thing with the officers' tasers. They're part of the package where we don't own them, we're leasing them, because at the end of their lifespan, they're not worth anything. So if you can get rid of them without having to expend more money, you're coming out a lot better in the long run. The radio lease that's in this budget, That is a lifespan lease. It's 5 years. At the end of that 5 years, you can either renew it, choose to, or you can choose to go a different direction. You have a lot more latitude, and you're not sitting with a bunch of $4,000, $5,000 paperweights, which is what these current ones are gonna be in the not-too-distant future. These current ones, just this one I'm wearing right now, when we bought it in 2007, was $3,500 each. The mobile units were $5,000 at the time, and they're a lot more now. Could we get that and recoup any of our investment in those now? Oh, absolutely not. They're outdated and they don't work anywhere. But if you get into where you're leasing and you don't own it, at the end of that lease lifespan, you can get rid of it and you're not saddled with a bunch of garbage.
Ship it in and get another one.
Yes, sir. That's the beauty of it.
That's the only questions I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it.
Okay, the next question.
Okay, go ahead.
The next question says, do we have a pay step increase plan that provides incentives as examples of efforts to retain officers?
We do have the COLA that we do each year outside of the pay step program. What came out of that was doing cost of living adjustment each year and the merit portion that we do. And if you combine 1.5 that we have in here for COLA and 1.7 that we have in here for merit, COLA's automatic, merit is based on job performance. You have the opportunity to get 3.25% increase during that year. If we're on a pay step plan, and there's nothing wrong with those, is that whatever you commit to for that pay step plan, whether it's 2.5 or 5, that's what you're committing to. You're committing future budgets to this plan. So if we committed to a 5% plan, the way our revenues are, that would be very tough to swallow right now. We'd have to come back to you and say, we're gonna have to change this plan, we can't afford it. If it was a 2.5% plan, it's 2.5. No matter what your merit is or what your COLA, whatever, that's just what it is, and it's that every single year. You're committed to it. You can look 5 years in ahead and say, that's what I'm gonna make 5 years from now based on this pay step plan. So the way we've got it set is an incentive for the employee. We did get, the last few years, the merit pay changed to how we have it now, which is actually better. It's based on your merit, so you have the opportunity to get that amount, like I said, based on job performance. So, the way the budget is that we're presenting is you have the opportunity to make 3.25% during this year.
The next question is, request a copy of the pay step plan. Basically,
You don't have it.
it's the COLA
Got it.
and the merit. What town full-time positions are salary and hourly?
Thank you, sir.
What you've got there, the next 3 questions, if you want to go ahead and read the other 2, all apply to what I just handed out.
Request a copy of the current position vacancy report and request a breakdown by full-time employee pertaining to budgeted positions.
Okay, so what you have there is a list of all positions that are approved, whether they're funded or not funded. That's every single position by department.
Okay, yeah.
If it's, the difference between salary and hourly is really for exempt and non-exempt. Exempt employees are all, they're paid the same no matter how many hours they work, which is most department heads and supervisors, all upper level employees. So anybody on that list that's a department head or a supervisor should be an exempt employee that gets paid the same no matter if they work 80 hours or 20 hours. The rest of them are all non-exempt. As I said, all the vacant positions are noted on there, which departments have vacancies. And of course, pretty much everyone is a full-time position. The departments that have part-time, they're not listed separately, they just have a budgeted amount. It'll just say part-time or overtime, that sort of thing. So that's the full list of all the positions.
Okay.
So if you have any questions on that,
And Drew, and you have the non-funded positions
they're
identified.
listed. There's only 2 that are non-funded, the assistant fire marshal position and assistant town manager.
Yeah, those are the,
Approved position,
mhm,
but there's nobody in that position, and it's not currently funded.
okay.
I think
So-
those are the only two unfunded positions.
So all other
There's
posi-
marked on there.
okay. Okay, this is a good report, thanks. It's a valuable report.
And I'll go ahead and go over the last few questions. Jesse asked, projected available general fund balance at the end of, fiscal year '21. Right now, I'm estimating we should finish this year about 110,000 over, or revenues over expenses.
Mm-hmm.
And so that would make our current fund balance as of last year's audit, I guess the available fund balance is like 4.8 something. So if we had the 110 to that, projected, fund balance at the end of '21 should be 4.928 is roughly it, which is 34.5% of the fiscal year '22 budget that we're proposing to. And then if our policy is to make sure that we always have at least 10% in fund balance, that would be 1.4 million based on the proposed budget. So our current amount that we have in there over the 1.4 is 3.387. The projected, if we add the 110 to that, is 3.498. If our goal is 12%, we're well over that. The 12% balance would be 1.716. Currently, that would be 3.1 over that, and projected into next year would be 3.2. So fund balance is fine.
Yeah, that's the reason I asked that question. Okay.
I think that's all the questions.
That was the end of the question.
All righty, so now,
I don't have one.
do we want to go, do you have a question?
No, Mr. Zell asked if anybody had a question.
He said that was the end of the questions.
Oh,
That
I'm
was the end
sorry.
of these questions. All right, do we want to now proceed with looking at this budget, as far as any other areas? Normally, we go through it tab by tab, and if there's nothing in that tab that you have questions about or any concerns about, then we'll move forward. So, where would we like to start?
Tab 1 is revenues.
All right. Looking at revenues, anybody have anything that you've highlighted or have questions about?
I do not.
Anybody? Anyone? Everybody's good with revenues?
Mhm.
All right. Next, we have, tab 2 is debt service, debt. Any questions on that? Okay, tab 3 is expenditures. As you're looking through those, is there any questions you have or anything that you want to talk about?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
Drew, under 10-410-6001, that's historic preservation.
Yes.
Department requested 49.3, and there's only 5,000.
Right. Most of that 493, if you look at that last page where they sent in their request,
Yeah.
most of it was for the chapel.
Mhm.
A lot of that we're doing in the current budget year.
Mm-hmm.
So, with everything that we're doing in the current year, whatever's not spent, we will push into next year. But, yeah, we put 5,000, that's what they normally have gotten in the past, in that line item.
And that's what brings me to the point, is that the budget that they presented here was a dated budget prior to the chapel. I know and Commissioner Legg knows this too, at their last two meetings, they wanted to do one house on Trade Street. And I think they even worked a budget up requesting 30,000 from, and they still have existing funds from their reserve.
We had spent all those historic funds. I don't know that any of those are left.
Well,
We spent those on,
I think we didn't spend, if I take off, here was the last, as of March 2021, the historical funds was $138,596.80. Yes.
Oh, okay.
And you sent me that.
Okay, then I still have that signed.
Yeah, so if I take off what we've authorized for the chapel, that leaves roughly about 87,000
Okay.
in the reserve. So they would still like to do one room, they would like to have 30,000 to do it from their reserve funds that's already here.
Is that reserve funds being used for the bathrooms
At that, oh, at the chapel?
at the chapel?
I don't know that we ever determined that, because we just decided at the budget retreat to just do it. How
Yeah.
it was funded was never, well, we talked about using the funds that were in the current budget
Right?
for the museum and the chapel. And once those funds were used up, then we didn't have an answer to that question.
Yeah.
It
I-
could be that
well,
we could use those funds for that.
Yeah, the funding, that original funding was budgeted for that area, if you'll recall. And part of that even included a parking lot. That's why I was
That money
questioning,
would be sitting in fund balance.
Yeah.
We'd have to do a budget amendment allocating. So then, if we did that, the 598 would go up. But I wouldn't do it until we're actually ready to do that project. We would do the budget amendment at the time that we're ready to do it and have a quote for what it's gonna cost.
Are we talking Trade Street House? What did we talk,
That and the bathrooms.
and the bathrooms?
Any spending that goes toward historical.
Okay, so let me understand, so are we taking what's remaining balance and applying it to the bathrooms from the reserve fund?
Y'all have not designated to do so. So right now.
I didn't think so, and that's the reason why I'm asking that question, is because that is outside, because funding the bathroom design build is a separate project.
Bathrooms are funded.
Yes, they are. I know,
That's
it.
not even part of that.
That's not part of this.
Yeah.
But what they would like to have is 30,000 from this to start on one room in that Trade Street house.
Well, I have
That's
not
all
seen
that they
them
want.
Asking or even showing that.
Well, and like I said,
Anything for the budget. when I
they can
send out
send
the
you,
request-
they can send you a new budget.
Right, well, actually, not to me, they need to go through their liaison or the council liaison. you know,
Commissioner Legg-
whoever
Commissioner
is their
Legg's here.
Contact with the town. You know, in order to do the budget, I have to have all the information by the end of March. Because right now, it's balanced. If they were to say, hey, we need this today, the budget's done. That's gonna be very hard to work that in, another 30,000. Unless you say, okay, it's coming out of reserves, we'll just pull it out of fund balance. So now
Right.
we're exceeding 600,000 coming out of fund balance. and
is
the
it,
budget.
yeah, is some of that work,
It's
is
doable.
some of that work being done by our staff? Is that not something that, Mr.
As
Cisco?
far as scheduling when.
No, I mean the work, the actual work on the inside of the house. I know that we were trying to complete a good bit of that work
Ourselves.
ourselves. That was where the painting and the remodeling was being done.
It would come down to timing when we have time to do it
Right.
based on the other projects we're working on.
Correct, okay.
And from what staff had gotten from the council at the retreat was chapel.
Yeah,
Finish
get the chapel
then
done.
we'll focus on
Trade
the-
Street.
Trade Street,
Trade Street
Right.
house. And that was the same request we got from the historical committee as well. So that's what staff was in the direction of doing.
Ma'am,
Yes, sir.
Drew, I hope this is appropriate time. It's probably not, but when they catch up with what they're working on now, they're basically done for next year's budget.
Possibly.
What's the possibility of requesting that $30,000 be made available to them in this budget?
We could do that.
Can we?
But it would probably be better served to allocate those funds when we're actually ready to do it.
But if they're not budgeted for that, they're hard to,
But we do a budget amendment at the time that we have a quote, what's it
Okay.
gonna cost to actually do
Okay.
the work. It might not cost 30,000. If it's less than that, we only budget what we have to spend, and the rest
Okay.
of it, we just
I understand
subtract,
that.
say it's
I
50.
understand that.
We only subtract 15 from the 87. What if it's more than 30,000? Well, I have to
They're
come back
not-
with the budget amendment anyways.
they don't have to come back and ask you for
Yeah.
more.
Right.
Okay, I can go
think-
with that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think this board is on record as saying we want both of those projects
Yep.
complete, the house complete, so
Right.
when it comes time to take care of it, it can be, like you said,
Right, but the main department that's overseeing that, in
Is-
order to get it done,
Public Works,
I don't know that we can do them simultaneously.
right,
You know, get
Okay.
one finished and then start the other.
yeah.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
the thought process here was that when the contractor that's working on the chapel finishes both of those projects, that contractor would look at the Trade Street house and make a proposal of exactly what it would take just for the one room, and then I think there's some doorways and there's some inside ADA things that's got to have. Bruce and Don know what they are. That's going to have to happen inside the house, but to have him come in and give us a quote, and that's why they were looking at the 30,000 mark.
So
So if you want to do about, get a quote from the contractor and then we do the budget amendment, okay.
yeah,
That would be the
better.
way to go.
Yeah, that would be better. Okay.
Would that be, is that good with you, Commissioner Legg?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay.
I just don't want to see the project slow down
Or stop.
or
No.
stop.
We've had that house for 5 years, almost 6 now.
Yep. All right, is there anything else on these expenditures that you would like explained, or would you like to discuss? Any questions you have about it?
Well, is this the one, this is not the one that covers town employees, right, under COLA? Is this the one that covers town employees under COLA?
Well, that's actually spread out for each department.
Yeah.
It's in every- it's in
Yeah,
every
each
budget.
department budgets for their own, under salaries.
I stated earlier, and Madam Mayor, I'm just going to say it. I stated earlier that the greatest asset that we have in our town are our town employees, bar none. Sure, the delivery of services is paramount, but we also have to take care of those who deliver those services. Because if we don't, then we'll have no one to deliver services. That's the reason why that was my first question on my list, was I would really like to see us, even if we have to go in to fund balance, I'd like to see a full year COLA, not a partial, not a half year. We're coming out of a pandemic, and I strongly believe that funding an entire year of COLA for our town employees is warranted. And that's where I stand with it. And that's the reason why I asked what the amount is and how we can get there.
Yes.
I agree with you, Commissioner Bellflowers. But I also see that we have these other positions that's not funded. I don't know if we add an extra COLA, is that a position or half a position that can be paid for? And then we're talking about putting $30,000 into a room, but we're telling these people out here we can't get them employees to help do their job, which is not going to bring any economic revenue into this town, probably. So that's my comment.
So Drew, I think that amount was what, 58?
56,
56.
56.5, basically.
56, 500, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, we're tab 4, which is human resources. Any questions in this area? Tab 5 is finance.
Well, I got a question. I was just waiting
Yes,
for
sir.
somebody to say something. Have we done anything for inspections and so forth in this budget?
Hadn't got there yet.
The inspections department,
Right,
yeah, that would be tab 11,
okay.
We'll get there.
yeah.
All right, we're behind tab 5. This will be the finance department. Any questions? Any concerns? All right, planning and economic development behind tab 6.
Madam Mayor, I know we addressed this at 490-1278. That remains at 20,000. But I was looking for the economic development line. Right, okay. Just want to make sure.
Yeah, it's 8331 if you want to know which account number it is, but,
Okay.
Any questions in reference to this budget? Okay. Next, we go to tab 7, which is Public Works. Anything under Public Works?
I guess all these additional requested positions will be under the other tab, right? 11?
They're under, there's a
Or beyond.
request, it's behind the section that belongs to that department.
Right.
And if it was funded, it would be within that area, so, the expenditures under public buildings and grounds is behind tab 8. Does anybody have any line item that they have questions about?
Mayor, we're at tab 8.
Tab 8, yes, sir.
The question I had here was about ADA transition program.
Okay.
It was, I think this is it. It was requested 75,000 and only funded 30. And then I look over at the tab that was submitted by the department. And the 75,000 was requested to renovate the Briar Park men's and women's restroom in order to bring them into compliance. If we only fund 30,000, what's in and what's not in?
right, that, let me find that sheet just to make sure. Here it is. Okay, what we had to do in part of balancing this budget was go back to each department, or certain departments that had some larger items, in there. The ADA transition, we had talked about putting 75,000 in each year, no matter what the requests were.
Mhm.
Since the only main request was the Broward Park bathrooms, that's only gonna cost about, what we're estimating, around $30,000.
Okay.
So, instead of funding the 75 like we try to do each year, well, let's just fund what we have listed, and hopefully that'll be enough, because we're thinking that, you know, that should be enough to do it. That's what Don told me.
Well, and that's the reason why I asked, because I know in previous budgets,
Right.
we
If had
allocated
more funds in there,
75,000.
then once that was done, we would find more of the things on the list to do. So pretty much that will probably be the main and only
Okay.
ADA thing, because we need to keep doing something each year.
Well, yeah, and that's why we allocated the 75 per year. But if the 30 is going to do it, then I understand your
That's why
reasoning.
30 still in.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Did we look at anything as far as the contractor for the HVAC system? I know there were some concerns about the numerous calls that are having to be
Right.
made and the same
I know we
person.
looked at different vendors last year and came up with a couple, but I think this, and doing the reference check, they're really all the same. We could switch vendors, they might not be as familiar with our system. I feel the same way as y'all do, they're here constantly, I don't know why. I think all the staff wonders why that's here every other day. But I do know we looked at it, I think it was last year, we considered switching vendors, we didn't, and we're still using that, but I don't know that, how much difference it would make to switch to somebody else. They could charge more, they could do a better job, I mean, we don't, you still don't know. Question mark.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, but that
Yes.
building is running off of how many units?
The what?
That building has how many units that it's using to run?
Parks and Rec,
Yes,
that I do not know.
11 units.
Well, Marco knows.
So I think that's what the problem is. I don't think it's a vendor. I think it's the problem with using 11
Right.
units over there to run it. I
We
think.
actually overhauled the entire system on the inside after we had after we cleaned it after the hurricane. But as far as the units and things, that part would have to, it'd have to be a major investment to switch from, I guess, 5 or 6 units, however many is out there, to a different setup.
I'm thinking maybe 4 is what they're.
So let me ask you, will we save more money doing that instead of paying Bass
I don't know.
2 years, over 2 years,
Yeah.
with the amount of times we call Bass out here? We could actually be saving more money by
Yeah.
making an investment to have it run efficiently and properly with less units. That's just my opinion.
Good thinking, though.
What would we need to do to assess that, to find out?
Lamarco's field maintenance folks would have to check and see who would do that sort of thing for us.
What we can do is we could probably do a RFP and get what, there's a couple of other commercial HVAC service related for commercial. From my understanding, Bass is residential. And then I'm hearing that they've sold Bass to somebody else. We don't know what kind of service we're gonna get. Whoever they sold it to, some of the people that we used to deal with, a couple of good technicians have left. So, I hear all the concerns, and we're still doing Bass. I still think it warrants having at least a couple more folk come in and take a look at it, and then assess the existing condition of the units, and just tell us what the bottom line problem is, because they are coming out quite often, more often than I've ever seen for any building as far as maintenance goes.
Do we know how old the units are?
At least 20 years old.
So see-
Yeah, since 2000, I think that addition was built in 2006, and that was part of it. And part of the problem that we have is the original contractor that put in the HVAC system is not in business anymore. So that's how we inherited Bass. So, if we were to go back in and do warranty type things or troubleshoot, we can't go back to the contractor to put it in because that contractor is no longer in business. So, typically about 20 years is your lifespan of you need to come back in and look at replacing them anyway. I
Well,
think
and
we'll go
also
beyond
for
that.
energy efficiency, and then also the type of Freon that is being used previously, it's more expensive now, so probably it's time to evaluate and see, rather than repairing and patching, that it might be time for replacement, which I know would be very expensive, but you might be more efficient in
We don't
that.
have it in the budget this year. I've always, I think a couple of years ago, I suggested that we have a mechanical engineer redesign it, because for a building that size, I've never seen more than 3 12 to 15
That's
ton
what-
units there. And we have 11, which is unheard of. So
11 opportunities to have
I
repairs.
think it's
11
warrants
problems.
another look at it. Maybe even a feasibility assessment of what we have there, and then maybe a part of the feasibility study would be a preliminary design of how many units are needed for that building, well balanced, and then like you say, they have new technology out there. I think what we have 20 years ago was probably outdated
Yes,
anyway.
yeah.
So,
Madam Mayor.
Yeah.
Marco, I thought we had to replace some of those units when the hurricane came through here. Or did we just have to do a major cleaning of all of them?
it's my understanding that we didn't replace the units, we replaced
We
the
didn't replace
ductwork.
the units themselves, we replaced some of the
Ductwork.
piping, the ductwork, and cleaned a lot of them and that sort of thing, and replaced some of the belts and, all the stuff that could be replaced, but the units themselves, I think, are the same ones.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
I do have another question, and I don't know if it's pertaining to any of your buildings, but I know when my HVAC guy told me, depending on some of these units, by like 2022, 2023, getting Freon for them, it's like 14 karat gold. That's how much it's gonna cost. It's gonna cost a lot of money.
It's probably rings true, just like if you got anything older, if you got any of the older light fixtures, you're finding it hard to find them on shelves now because they're obsolete. So it's probably gonna be the same thing with HVAC units. Some of this older stuff, they're not gonna have parts or really anybody to service, the work anymore because they're so old. So
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, we're moving to tab 9, and that's the police department. We've discussed this and got information, but is there any questions in reference to any of the line items or anything that you have more questions about?
I think we questioned him pretty good when he was up here.
Madam Mayor, I only have one,
Okay,
and I direct it to Chief and say, is 8,000 enough for the cadet training?
Excellent question, sir. Given as this is a brand new
Okay. Okay.
Same thing with the Veterans Advocate. Again, a brand new program. We did an estimate for the line item value. We can come back to the better estimate after we've actually had it in practice for our budget.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to circle back to that RFP on those units on that rec center. What's it gonna cost us, Lamarco, for RFP on that rec center?
For maintenance,
To look at an effective, efficient plan? Or, excuse me, Mayor,
Yes,
I
go
just,
ahead.
I just kinda, it
costs
kinda
nothing per se
stumped
to
me.
do the RFP, but what we need to do is see if we can get another service professional to work with him, what we already have budgeted in contracted services to come and do the maintenance on the building.
How much do we have in contract services dedicated?
That's a good question.
Just to the maintenance plan?
Right.
Because that was where I was
It
going.
comes out of building maintenance, Drew.
And
we
we
would-
haven't got to that budget, that line item yet, but.
Is the Parks and Rec building with,
Got 32,800. Maintenance repair buildings.
Yeah.
are we with Duke Energy? Is the Parks and Rec building with Duke Energy?
Then we are Duke.
All of our stuff is with you.
Then we need to look at contacting Duke Energy and finding out what they've got some special programs if you are changing out HVACs and lights for energy conservation. And the contact's David McNeil, and he's in Moore County, that can give us we can get information from him, because I know there's opportunities out there, and that might be the way to go, to find out first what kind of things are available, special
Yeah.
funding, energy-related funding, and then find a company that would be willing to give us a price on how we could make it more efficient. And we probably could find somebody that might do that through them, that would be cost-effective.
Well, the reason, Madam Mayor, I asked that is because if you look at that line item, the actual cost in 1920 was $65,521, and you only had a budget of 47, and now we're estimating at year end 36,206, and we're requesting funding lower than what's going to be the actual part of this year.
Too much.
So, I always try to live by the golden rule of, you don't waste good money after bad. And I think that's what warrants it here, because I mean, we're budgeting less than the actual maintenance at the end of this fiscal year.
Right, I think some of that's because some of the maintenance was one-time charges, or one-time, we were expecting it to be a one-time fix.
Right, and along with the HVAC, we've had to do some things like roof repairs and some, and plumbing that's coming out of that line.
Right, we're not gonna have to do.
We're not gonna have to do those anymore. We had to do some plumbing things inside the building and repairs like that. So
Okay.
knock on wood, we don't have any of those,
Yeah.
but for the most part, a lot of our plumbing issues were taken care of the last fiscal year. So those are one time. But to guesstimate what the maintenance cost is gonna be, that's kinda like routine, as need be. And we really don't know what that is because, we don't know what's
Right.
gonna break down on,
Mhm.
as far as the units go.
Okay.
I'll be real quick, because I know we're running out of time, but I think if you're saying those units are about 20 years old, I don't think it's a matter of if they're gonna mess up, it's a matter of when.
Oh, it's when.
So I just think, and Bill, you told us to plan for this on another night, that 2 hours wasn't enough. That's all, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you, sir. All right, next we got the fire department, that's tab 10. Any questions there? Everything good?
Mhm.
Tab 11 is the inspections, and this is, I think, Commissioner Legg, this is where you were wanting to know or had some concerns?
Yes, we had talked about putting some additional employees in that department because those guys are covered up. And I just wanted to know where we're at on that in order to get help for Kenny and Ray and the other ladies in that department as well.
Yeah, what we're talking about is, at some point, and based on what Chancellor has mentioned about a lot of, retail and commercial growth coming to town for subdivisions, houses being built, as we see the influx of more and more, if it gets to the point that it's more than Ray and Kenny can handle, well, not only are we gonna need that position, but if there's that many inspections going on, we're gonna have that much more revenues coming in as well, in inspection fees and those sorts of things. So we'll kind of be able to pay for that position. So at such time we see that all these permits are coming in, we don't have time, or they don't have time to get it all scheduled and done, then we'll know, okay, we need to get another person in here. And that should also show revenues go along with that.
It just about takes one of them full-time next door. It takes one of them, where you stand, may I ask, Ray, where you stand on that, needing help?
What we're gonna do is, me and Kenny's gonna battle it out. We'll take care of what we got to do for the time being to get our inspections. Our biggest concern right now is the fact that they said we got no money in the budget. I got a part-time help. That salary's being cut. If you look at line item 1012, which is the second one under wages and salaries, it says part-time help. A salary of $13,500 for next year.
Well, that was my question, Ray. Is that enough?
I need this lady full-time. She has
Okay.
been trained. She's very good. If Miss Vonda is out, who is the lead permitting tech, she steps in, she can do it. She's been doing it. She's had to do it several times. She's very attentive to her job. The customers may come in and the phone calls. I need this lady right now. I don't need her part-time. Y'all got to make the final decision. But if I have to tell her, between me, Kenny, and HR, that she's gonna be part-time, her salary's gonna be cut. Her hours are gonna be cut. She's gonna leave. She left a full-time job coming here to hope to get on with the town. That was what she wanted to do. And we told her that it might not work out. We weren't sure. But we need this lady. I need her full-time.
Madam Mayor, you know, this was the position that I advocated for strongly last year. I advocate even stronger for this position this year. I
What we
said
gotta
that at
do
the
to make it
retreat.
happen, Drew?
Not an inspector, it's an admin position is what you're talking about?
I'm talking about the administration. I need two people in the front office. As we all discussed, the town is growing. We are growing. We're getting busier. One person cannot handle the phone calls up there that come in, answer questions. We got a menu up there. People will skip right over the menu as soon as they hear inspections. When do they come pick up my garbage? So we have to transfer them. We're an operating center up there too, for the town.
So you're asking for an administrative position instead of an
It's for
inspector
the front
position?
office. This lady is part-time.
In there right now.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just, half salary.
He wants to make the part-time
He wants to
position
make it
full-time.
full-time.
Okay.
And no department, as far as positions or even operations, is getting less than what they have currently in this budget now. We make sure that none of that current operations would be less than what they're getting in the current budget year. So he has a part-time position now, he's got a part-time position in next year's budget. We make sure
But at less.
that it wasn't cut.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm gonna put it to you like this. We got to have the meeting. We tell her that the salary's gonna be $13,500. Before we sit down and talk to her, we got to figure out how many hours, how much she's gonna make an hour, and then she'll find a job and leave. There I am stuck with one person again, and then if Vonda is out, the only other department left.
You have to cover the debt. Your two buildings, you have to cover the front. And that's not right, that's usually your code.
Mayor.
It's not gonna work.
The other positions that we have to cover them when they're out, it's code. So that one part-time position out there in front makes sense, a domino effect. Because I'm begging for four code enforcement. I didn't get any, I'm stuck with the two out last year, but if this happens.
It messes everything up.
Back on rotation. on
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, you gotta cover down.
I got a question. How much are we, does this automated phone stuff that we got when you call up here and all I get's recording, and I got to sit there and listen like you said and mash buttons, how much is that costing this town?
I don't don't know what just that portion of it is, but it's a little bit more, for that service, which we didn't have before, it's a little bit more. It's not a lot.
The reason
but
why I
it
was
does
asking,
help with some of the transferring costs.
because if he's saying he's got to have two people out there, I for one, I can't stand when I call up here to get up with somebody having to listen to a recording.
Right.
I don't know why, if there's two people out there right now, why somebody can't answer the phone and say, Town of Hope Mills, how can I help you? Or how may I direct your call? It is aggravating.
We can go back to that, but
I mean,
that was part of the,
can we go back to that and take the money that we're paying for the recorded service and roll it toward that? I mean, I don't know.
$2,000 bucks,
But it's a start. I mean,
but it's not anywhere near a full-time.
but I think a lot of this stuff, and this is a question I had tonight too, and it's a pet peeve of mine. I think we need to get back to personal service, where we're not talking to recordings, we're not texting, we're not emailing. The personal touch to this town has been lost. I hear, it's not just me, I hear a lot of people say, you know, I try to call up there, all I get's recording, I try to hit the buttons they tell me to hit, I can't never get nobody, and it's just aggravating.
Exactly, we don't have enough staff, that's what we're trying to tell you.
That's where we're
That's
good.
all the departments, now Ray's department is in need a little bit more right now, so we are really, really tight, all of us. So that touch is going to go away if you're continually growing the town and you have one or two people doing a job for a growing town. So I really think some of the other things you all are looking at really needs to take a second and look at it and make sure, you know, we have enough people in these positions. So it's not just a, you know, don't just go to town, like I think Bill Flower said earlier, the staff is also in need. We are hurting right now.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
Drew, what do we have to do to make this happen?
Make that position full-time?
Yes, sir? If whatever they're requesting, they need help with.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
While I'm saying that, Commissioner Bellflower, that's the reason why I made the comment about the COLA. And that's also the reason why I want the museum operational, but I don't think we have $30,000 to put into a room where we don't have the staff to operate this town.
Salary alone would be $36,500. That does not include benefits.
What's part-time?
Part-time is $13,500. Which is what he has currently right now, which is 2 people up front, so that Chancellor's folks don't have to go up there.
Can we pull money out of reserve? Or do we have money in that?
Operations, I would not recommend using reserves for operations.
You got money you can pull from somewhere to put there to make that happen?
If we did, it would be in the budget.
Mayor Pro Tem, in reference to the 30,000, that's not new funding. That's coming from prior approved reserve funds that's already been approved by past boards. So that's not new funding at all.
So if we, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
So if we approve it, it's a matter of where, the money is gonna have to come out of somewhere else.
I think we all agree that
Oh, no, I'm not
These
saying it's not
people are-
needed. Yeah, that's what, and that's my point that I made earlier about it's been 10 years or so since we had a tax increase, but we are nickel and diming to operate the town the way it's supposed to be operated. So that's my point that I'm trying to make. I'm not saying, I know he needs his position.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, a tax increase wouldn't help us right now. That's a year down the road, or a year and a half down the road.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry.
I would just like to make a comment from a lot of citizens that have been calling and all. And I realize that we are growing. We're doing a lot of annexations. There's new businesses coming in. A lot of them say, well, what do you have? What are the services like? We do not have our fire department needs help, because every time we annex, some of these people are saying, well, what can the fire department do for us? Where's the fire hydrants? Where's everything located? How close is this to where we want to buy in the housing area? What about the police service? And when they hear that we're already 10 shy in the police department, and that's why we need more information to get out to the people and let them know exactly why this is happening. They're saying, well, you're annexing, you're rezoning, you're bringing in new businesses, and we don't have the services that we need. And a lot of the employees are understaffed. They can't keep up with what they're doing now. And any new project we have, we're calling them off of their duties to help us complete some of the things that we want to do. And I don't think it's fair to the employees or to the town. And I think if town realized the situation we're in with the service department and everything, I don't think that they would be reluctant into having the taxes raised. I mean, that's just the way I feel. And that's what some of them have said to me, that they don't care as long as they know that they're gonna get the services and everything that they need.
I'm gonna say this, our department brings in a lot of money every year, revenues. So, and it goes into the general fund. Our department is not sitting over there waiting on the general fund to come around to get our money because we've already donated.
I wanted
We've
to ask,
donated money to the general fund.
I wanted to ask a question on that. I just asked the mayor if I could ask a question. So if we pull one of the inspectors off the road to go answer the phone, how much revenue is the town losing during that time that that person, is there a figure on that?
The permit fees would be the same, whether, if it's just to back them up for when they go out. But with the full-time and a part-time position, they should have coverage up front for lunch,
Can the,
vacation days, and things of that nature.
can the inspections department revenue that they bring in support that position full-time?
No,
Will they
right
make
now,
the
current
money?
revenues that they bring in aren't any more than what their department spends. They probably bring in, I can add it up right quick.
Be ready.
Ray may know it.
Got it? Either way. You good with it?
Okay, their revenues are projected for next year to be 289,000. Their department budget's 307.
Go ahead.
Okay, Drew, in our ordinance and all, we have stipulations that if things aren't updated and upgraded and people aren't taking care of their property and all, that we have a fine.
That's their code enforcement now.
Okay, now, is this money collected? Is it really enforced?
Yeah, we bill it and they should pay it. Sometimes
Do they
it's hard
pay
to
it?
have teeth to get them to pay it, but yeah, we bill it and they're supposed to pay it.
So, they're supposed to, but do they? Do we make them pay it?
We can put a lien on their property, but most of the time it's such a small amount, it might not be worth it. But if it is feasible to put a lien on the property, then we do that.
Because there's a lot of people say there's so many houses that need to be condemned and are brought up to standard, and if they're not, you know, the property owner should be notified and
Yeah.
given so much time, and
Right, that's what code enforcement does. That's under Chancellor's Department.
and they don't get enough money to help them out.
There's one other thing too. Every month y'all get a report. And I don't know why it didn't dawn on, it just dawned on me a while back. We collect extra money up front, Kenny and I, under plan review fees. And that money's not showing on that table. That's several thousand a year,
Where's that going?
general fund.
Mayor?
And see, that should be,
So, if you could get that money, if it was showing up and take it and put it with our other, we're not too far from making our budget.
Drew, well, I mean, and Mr. Zeller, Drew may be answering this, with the projected growth of the town, with everything that's coming in, do you think the upcoming permit fees or the projected revenue may
If
be
you look
able to
at, go back
support
to
that?
tab 1, under revenue. And Pat, the question that you're asking for code enforcement, we budget $5,000 for code enforcement fees. We can pay for violations and stuff. The 1920 budget year, we received $2,665. The current year, we're estimating $3,792. So I have 5,000 budgeted for next year's revenue, but we've yet to even hit that 5,000 in the last 2 years.
Madam Mayor.
So it's not a lot of money that we even get.
Go ahead.
Now, Marley, your question, go back to tab 1, look under permits and fees,
Mm-hmm.
that section, that 152,000, that's what we're budgeting next year for building permits. We're estimated this year to receive about 145,000. The previous year, the actual was 152,000. So I don't really want to estimate more for next year's budget than what we actually received the year before last. I'm thinking this year could be down some because of the pandemic, but things are recovering now, so I'm thinking we should be back to where we were the year before, is my hopes. And then there's all the other fees that go with it. Most of them are in the $30,000 range and go down from there. So
Correct me if I'm
yeah,
wrong.
every one of those fees is $289,000. So
Mayor,
out of
Mayor.
a $14 million budget,
After
it's still
Mayor Pro Tem.
a small amount.
Drew. You just said projected fees up under your table at 153,000. Is that what you just said right there?
Building permits.
Hmm?
For building permits.
Building permits. I thought you did that math a while ago, and I thought it was about 200 and some. What were you calculating then?
All permits, not just
All
building
permits. Okay, we need to remind, because you get a building permit and it's a new house, we're gonna get an electrical permit, a plumbing permit, and a mechanical permit. So we just need to deal with what the total's gonna be at the end, not just on buildings.
I didn't want to have to read that to them so they can see it.
I do have a question. First, I know we don't have direction about the funding that we're gonna start getting next month or in June. Do you think there is anything in here that we'll be able to use that funding for, to take the money out and maybe help fund a position like this? And two, I heard in another state, some of the radios that we're spending for the fire and police, they use their CARES money to help pay for that. So I know that was a big budgeted amount here. Do you think, because we can put this off, we don't have to approve it tonight, do you think we'll be able to do something like that to free us up with some more money? Or you really don't know?
I don't know.
But we've got time, because if they're going to release that money and they're going to give us direction,
I've heard from both chiefs that they've heard through their sources that the CARES money pays for radios. I have yet to find any of that myself. And I have sent that question into the league. And they said, well, look at it and see. And I've not gotten a response. But when I've looked through it, I don't see anything in the information that says this can be used for radios for public safety. I haven't found it. And Chuck even called his chief and said, where'd you get that information from? And he said, one of the representatives told him that. I think, this is just me, but I think they're hoping that it does. And they're gonna try to see that it does. But again, the only response I keep getting from that is further guidance. We'll look and see. We'll try and see what we can do, but there's nothing official that says we can spend that money on, if we could, then definitely I would take the lease that we're doing for police. I would take that entire amount out and we'd buy $617,000 worth of radios with it. I would love to do that. And if I find out that CARES will fund radios, we will change the budget and do it that way. But right now, I don't have that guidance.
Well, my problem was you did give us a budget. I don't want to take all of it from them, because we are paying for stuff out of pocket right now. If you have to pinch a penny, you can pinch a penny off of that budget for us.
That penny's squeezed as tight as it can go. I mean, I would love for Ray to have his full-time. I would love for HR to have their for full-time. Chancellor's position, Parks and Rec, all of it.
Madam Mayor.
yes, sir?
Oh, somebody else was next, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
Commissioner Legg?
yeah, I'll go after him.
Thank you. Drew, we just need to make this happen, because the longer we go, the further behind we get. HR is hurting, Parks and Rec is hurting, inspections is hurting, code enforcement's hurting. There's no reason that we can't put off buying a pickup truck or a tractor or a baseball or something to make this happen. And I'd love to see us make this happen, and we got about 5.5 weeks that we can make it happen in.
As soon as he's done.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Would,
Ray, let me
Since-
ask you this. And Drew too. At FTCC, we have a program called Work-Based Learning that has a tremendous amount of interns, student interns, that work at various positions. If we were to look, Drew, if we were to look at funding your full-time position starting January and use and use interns from FTCC until January, would that be an option, Drew?
I-
Because you use one.
I did, and guess what? Her time is up. And I'm back to where I was.
Mhm.
So once Ray invests all the time into training, it takes hours to train a person. So we put all that time into that person, and then when we actually include it in the budget, it's denied, and the person is gone, and we started from scratch.
Okay.
We got a lot of
Also-
time and we got money.
well, and I also think that
Right.
the question that Ray has for us is that the person he has that's quite qualified is going to go if she's not full-time. So I think that's his concern there.
I mean,
Could-
I'm not trying to sound mean or rude. I'm just fighting for somebody in my department.
Well, let
And
me,
there-
well, Madam Mayor, well then, forget the intern part of that option and go with January.
That's still, I think, what we need to do at this point, since the time is where we are. Do we need to set another budget workshop and let that workshop be for these remaining tabs and to start looking at these positions and how to fund it? What would be a date? I know that our next board meeting seems too far away because that's June 7th. So would we,
Y'all have time to get together.
so is,
This meeting instead of, continue.
we'll continue this budget meeting, so would it be possible to continue this meeting tomorrow? Could this meeting be continued tomorrow, and what time could we start?
I'll be here all day.
5?
What would be convenient?
Start at 4?
Tomorrow won't work for me. I've got a celebration for
Wednesday at
graduation.
5?
Or Wednesday, that would be May 19th at 5? Huh?
Commissioner Edwards can't do Wednesday.
Okay.
I can change my appointment.
What's the earliest that we could get together? Is 5 gonna be the earliest? Can we get together before then?
Yeah.
I could be here at 4. I mean, I don't,
Is
I
that
think both of
tomorrow?
us can be here at 4.
On Wednesday, the
I'm gonna leave it
19th.
At 4 o'clock Wednesday morning, my wife and I are going on vacation. So, we don't get to do that very often. Of course, it can happen without me.
Hmm? The question is if we just continue this after the regular meeting tonight.
We're all here.
We're all here, let's do it.
Let's do
Let's
it.
do it.
Alrighty then, so
I'll
at
make
this
a motion
point,
that we
we'll
recess this
recess,
meeting.
we'll recess this meeting and reconvene this meeting after our regular meeting, and we will take, at this time, a 5-minute recess. You're gonna have to, I'll call our budget meeting back to order, and we were behind tab 11. I think we've completely discussed this one. And is there anything that you want to add to where we were?
Madam Mayor, I
Yes,
would.
sir. Okay.
To pick up our conversation, how much, let me make sure that I had the right amount. To fund that full-time position, how much in addition to the 13.5?
It would be 38,129.
38,129.
The total cost would be 51,629. That includes salary, benefits, the whole bunch. We would take the 13.5 out of part-time and put it up into, and then you just add the 38,129 to the 13.5.
Okay. Here's where I'm going with it. Thank you, Mayor. Here's where I'm going with it. I know that we've talked a great deal about funding and funding available. And that's why I was looking at some numbers earlier that I requested on where we would be at year end. We're going to be looks like estimated at year end, we're gonna have $110,000. That $110,000 is a surplus to represent all the savings of all the departments in this town. They've all contributed to that $110,000 in one way or another. That's why it's there. So if we're looking for funding, and funding's the issue, I would use that $110,000 to fund the COLA and to fund this position, both. Since the departments have saved that, it should be shared back with the departments for that 6 months, and that would give them the entire COLA for the year. And we would have the additional money for that administrative position as well.
I'm sorry, Mr. Bellflower.
Yep. That's exactly where I'm going. We'll use the fund balance of 110 that we've saved at this year end.
What position are you talking about, sir?
The admin position. Ray, is this the one you're looking for? Yes, sir. And that's all you need, Ray? Well, I shouldn't ask that question. I shouldn't ask that. I take it back, Ray.
I'm gonna put it just like this. When you look at that monthly report, those ladies don't do just building, electrical, mechanical, and plumbing permits. They do the yard sale. They do the permits for the zoning department. They do the driveway permits for public works. The fire marshals. They process all that. When you see that report, that is the money that comes through that office at the front.
Mhm.
Not just building alone. These other departments too, they collect it.
They all share it. Mhm.
Okay? So it's just not my department that collect money for, it's other departments. And that's why we need 2 full-time.
Okay.
Now I'm done.
And Ray, where did you say this girl came from? You said that she gave up a permanent job to come here?
She did. She used to work at the CVS right down at Trayvon.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, that's my proposal.
Okay. Because I'm aware of all the other positions that have been cut, and this is the only department head that you have allowed to plead their case, I believe we're now in a situation where each department head is going to have to say why, and they need their persons that they have been cut. Otherwise, that $110,000 is not going to need to go to an increased COLA. It's going to need to go to possibly fitting these needs in. And I may be wrong, but I do believe since we've opened this can of worms, we're going to have to continue.
There are other departments that have the same situation
Right.
Ray's talking about, but either didn't think it'd be something that they would get, knowing the budget situation.
Right.
So either didn't ask, or they have part-time right now that isn't full-time. It's not, it's across the board. It's not one department.
Okay, so if we go back to where we started, the first department that we talked about,
If you look at, go to the very front of your budget,
well, I was just going to go to where these tabs are, so that way they could. So we're in tab.
and go to page
27.
in the very front, before you get to the tab. You have all the positions that were requested, the annual salary amount and the salary plus benefits amount.
Before I get to the tabs. Lordy mercy.
Page 27 before the tab.
All right, so we're,
Looks like this.
Yeah.
all right.
We funded all 5. Salary and benefits, for $267,000.
Okay. So you got all right, the position that we looked at now is the inspections position, which you've had that one, we've discussed that one. All right, human resources, she has left. Planning, Chancellor is not here now. Streets,
Now, the street position, is is a transfer from Powellville. Remember, we're trying to get less positions in Powellville, so we
Yeah.
can use that more for actual street maintenance. So each year, we try to move another position. What we did was we requested to move the position, but then in the recommendation, we're not moving it. We're gonna leave it in Powellville. So that's one that we could just leave it in Powellville for this year and try again next year, or we could do the same like we're trying to do with the others.
And-
That position's funded regardless.
Yeah, and one thing that I need to remind the commissioners is these will be reoccurring funding.
It's ongoing.
It's
every
not
year.
something that you're gonna just have to have funding for it this year. It is reoccurring funding. It's not one-time funding. So sometimes we forget that when we're doing budgets, that this is money that you're gonna have to come up with every year as we add things to this budget. But, so the street position is one that
We just leave
just,
that
you can
out
leave
for
it where it
further.
is. So is that okay with the board, that we just leave that position where it is and not do what we said we were gonna do as far as moving them to the regular budget?
That's fine with me.
It's okay.
Okay, so that one stays where it is. All right, next we have Parks and Rec, maintenance worker. So I guess, Mr. Morrison?
We figured we wasn't gonna get that position, so we've already, he increased our part-time salaries, and so, we'll work within our part-time salaries to, you know, right now, we're having to use a part-time worker for that main position. The only problem with that is, we use this person so much that we have to cut his hours for the next 3 months we'll have to, so he don't run out. You know, we only allocated 999 hours per
Roughly
year.
1,000 hours.
And he gets close, so it's always either that or we have to lay this person off and then we're short, so.
Does this person have other ways of earning a wage, or are we, does this
I don't
hurt
know
this
that.
person when they're let go because there's no money to pay them? Is this, that's, you know, the,
I don't know if this person has another, I just know this person's reliable and we've had him on for going on 2 years now. And is a very, very good worker. Been dependable and, you know, works very hard, so. I don't have the urgency that Ray does, but it does put us in a bind if we lose him because we're down a person and, you know, and we have to work what we have, and sometime we don't do overtime anymore, and so we got to kind of coerce our guys to work a little over, and you know, not being able to get overtime, they don't really want comp time anymore. So
you're spending you'll be spending the money in overtime if you do need additional help
right
from somewhere.
Right. So, anyways,
So,
May I
thoughts
ask
from the board?
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Drew, if these people should get laid off, are they eligible for unemployment?
No, they're part-time employees.
Okay, that was my question.
But it's not that they're laid off, it's just that their hours are either reduced, or once they hit that maximum limit of what's counted as part-time hours, you just have to schedule them later.
Okay.
so for instance, between now and July 1, when the clock starts again, we have this person on like roughly 14 hours a week, just so we don't have to
That's not a
lay
good
him
thing.
off. We cut his hours back, so he won't get as many hours, but we want to lay him off. Last year we had to lay him off for a little while because he was getting
COVID.
close on the other people.
The other time you can do with part-time though, is you can hire another person
Right, I used to do
in
that
that
myself.
same timeframe, because it's not an issue of the money, it's an issue of hours.
How many hours do they have to work
To stay part-time, I can't remember the exact,
to
it's about
stay
1,000.
part-time?
But there's no benefit, there's no benefits with part-time.
No.
So
There's
on
no,
average,
there's no
maximum-
guaranteed schedule with part-time when you have to start cutting my hours.
Right. We try to keep them, so for every 2 weeks, whereas we work 80 hours, we try to keep them up under between around 60 or really roughly around 50 to 58 hours per pay period is what we give them, just to make sure it averages out where they won't go over their 1,000 hours a year.
Commissioner Bellflowers, you have any comments on this one?
No.
Okay, anyone else?
No, ma'am, thank you.
Okay, and these are the only positions that they asked for?
Right.
So I heard there were more positions than this, so
Well, the
is
police
this,
department's like 10 short.
no, I mean, but
They don't have
they're,
anybody.
Oh,
They didn't ask for new, they have
But
vacancies
those,
to fill.
those vacant ones are.
they're they're budgeted, but they're not new positions. These are new positions, so.
Correct.
I know that the code enforcement, do we have something that they wrote or something that we can go by since we don't, or do we just want to continue this part? Because since we don't have,
What's in the budget, if you look under tab 6,
where, sir?
is justification tab 6. About 3 pages in, and you've got its justification.
code enforcement, okay?
Just request a new position, then the other page shows the, job duty.
Madam Mayor?
Uh-huh.
Now, I thought with this HR assistant and that code enforcement, that was requested last year. Was it not requested last year?
What happened last
No, it didn't get
year
it last year
was
either.
code enforcement switched from inspections department to planning. And we added a new code enforcement position last year. It started, it was a mid-year, I think we started funding it in October, but it was actually done in January to give inspections time to get their new person in and trained. So we essentially wound up doing a half-year position for code enforcement. So now it went from 1 to 2. So.
But he was asking
we
for
did
3
this,
last year, right? Wasn't he asking for 3 last year?
He asked for 1 last year.
I mean, I thought he asked for 3 last year, and I thought we went to,
He may have, I don't remember, I'd have to go back and look. but
he asked
may
for
have
4.
asked for more than
So
that.
these are not new, and I know the HR assistant.
He wants 4 eventually. I think he's only asking 1 this year, maybe 1 next year, but he would like 4 to have it,
Oh.
break it up in a quadrant, and each one is responsible for the quadrant.
But you may be right, I'd have to go check, but he may have asked for 2 last year and only got 1.
So so I think the code enforcement and the HR, I think they were requested last year, and I think we didn't accept them.
They've been fighting for quite a while, Mayor
We
Pro-
should,
Mayor
we
Pro
should
Tem.
help them too for doing
Well,
what they do for one.
And I wish they would have stayed to speak for themselves, but as you grow with employees, I mean, the town grows, the employees grow, there's different systems. Apparently, there's 2 of them doing a system where there are some places that have 5 and 6 people that do the system. So I wish they would have stayed to speak for themselves. But, I do know that they had, and I know those 2. I thought they had been asking for those for quite some time, and we had said no. Commissioner, but you said you said it was 110 surplus.
That's estimated.
Yeah.
That's estimation, 110.
Oh,
That's the plans, 110.
could be less.
Yeah,
56,513.
Is actually 94,629.
that's why I made the proposal I did, because we have it. Even if it's under, I think you still have 94, even if it comes in low.
But how much is it gonna cost if we added those positions back in? That's the question.
Well, one of them's just a position, Mayor, the other one's COLA.
No, I'm talking about they're getting a COLA.
They're
Right.
getting half a year of COLA.
Right now, starting January 1.
They're
Okay.
getting half year. That's where this, half of that 56.5 is gonna fund the other half year. So it'll be a full year out of the $110,000 surplus at year end. Along with the money to pay for this administrative assistant.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I would rather see us do two, at least two positions. I like the COLA, but I think we might need to wait with the extra COLA if we can until next year. I'd rather try to see if we can fill some of these positions that people have been requested for some time. And I think that many of their colleagues will probably be okay with that. I can't speak for them either, but that's just my suggestion. Now, how we figure out, I know we know that Ray area desperately needs some help, but how we figure out which two, I don't know.
That was our dilemma. That's why we didn't recommend.
Well, Mayor,
Yes, sir?
the two departments on here, inspections and the planning, the inspections and planning and economic development, those two departments are revenue makers for the town, so I don't know if that makes a difference, but to me, I mean, they have the capability of funding those positions because they do make revenue. The other departments don't really bring in revenue for the town. But their jobs are still equally important. I
Yeah,
see
they're
your
essential.
dilemma, but that would be the only thing that would stand out to me.
Not unless we can find two, and then the other ones are priority for next year. And or go back and revisit it when we get more direction about what we can do with this funding, because maybe that will relieve us in some areas as well. I'm not for sure.
What if we looked at starting the HR assistant in January? How much difference would that be?
Just essentially cut 57, 8 and a half.
Okay, and then what if we did the code enforcement officer in January?
Same thing. Just cut it in half.
And start the administrative assistant current now?
What was that?
Start the position for the front office now. In other words, meaning this budget year. So July 1.
Oh, then
That
it would be the
position-
amount that's in here.
Right, the third, you said it was 51.
51,629.
All right, so if you did that one starting July, and then if you did the other two starting in January,
Let me add it up.
all right, add that up.
And Madam Mayor, they said code enforcement will need a vehicle. They add another position, they need a vehicle.
They won't need one if they work in the front, will they?
Now, we're talking about the code enforcement position.
Oh,
Because
okay.
the purpose is we want them out enforcing code.
Now, we want them to charge,
And if they're riding together, that's,
want them to be on their
The
own.
enforced position would also include a
Who
truck
drives the admin?
and other equipment and things needed to
Okay.
go out. So we took the truck out and the position, so. we
Okay,
had
so
to
if you,
add the
but
truck
if-
back in.
and if you add the position back for January, then maybe if we find out from this money we're gonna get, if it can be used somewhere else, we can pull monies from there,
Let's start it now.
and then hopefully we're gonna end up with some more revenue coming in because of all this building that's happening right now.
You know what, Mayor?
How much will that be?
You know what, Mayor? Sounds like a lot of ifs.
Yeah,
And you're clouding the priorities with your ifs. And that's just my opinion.
We'd have to add essentially $86,000 for just the position, and then probably anywhere between 25 to 30 for another truck. So if you did 30,000 to that. You got 116. So 2 half-year positions, a new vehicle for code enforcement, full year for, the inspections, receptions. Be 116, give or take.
Commissioner Bellflower, what do you think about that?
Nope.
That,
asking Commissioner Bellflowers what he
Nope.
thought about that, and he says no.
Nope.
yeah, that's it.
Nope. We're missing the priority. That's my opinion. We are.
What's the priority?
With a bunch of ifs. I think you know what the priority is, Mayor. I think I've been very clear about it.
Comments? What's your thoughts?
One penny in tax is $125,000. That's what you guys, I mean, we want to put these positions in, I mean.
But like I said, we don't get that money now. It's a year and a half or year down the road before that money would be
That
available
1
to us.
cent would not only fund it this budget year, but essentially each budget year afterward. Because remember, positions are every year. The truck would just be a one-time, but the positions would be ongoing.
Madam Mayor, and I did ask you that a year ago, Drew, how much would it be if we raised the taxes by
1 cent.
1 cent?
It's $125,000.
Madam Mayor, I am okay with the 1 cent if it's gonna fund all of these positions.
When the tax was raised the last time, it was raised 2 cents. It was raised because we were adding additional officers to public safety.
With the police salary.
And the public was much in favor of that. It was most welcome. And at this point in time, I don't know that raising taxes is going to be favorable because we're spending a lot of money for a public safety building right now, and people are looking at that as, even though we're financing it, you know, it's still out there that we've got a $17 million possibly structure that we're funding. So I think we've got to look at perception too of how we handle this. So set the board's wishes, but the increase, and I guess the department heads could be asked about the increased COLA. If they're getting a COLA, if that would, with this current year, the way things have gone, most everybody has gotten stimulus money. There has been addition to our income, and there also has been addition to our income in other ways. So this is just one of those unique years. I'm just wondering which is the best way to go. And not, I mean, the ifs that I have are just the ifs with the money that's coming that we don't know how we can use it. And that is, and I agree, but that $4.6 million is money we know that is coming. How we allot it, we don't know how we can do it, but we can fill in some of these blanks possibly.
That also sounds like that 4.6 would need to be for capital type projects.
Right.
Not necessarily operational
Right.
type projects.
And we
When I
have some
read
of
that-
those, we have some of those that could be shifted, I think, that way too.
When I read
Yes,
that about the tax money today, wow, how can we use it? You know? And right on it, off the bat, I thought of stuff just like this. But then, the way it read, you may not be able to use it for that.
You just have to get clear definition of how it can be funded.
Had to see what the rules to play by are.
Mm-hmm.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, ma'am?
Drew, when is the next update about that funding? How to spend that funding?
I don't have anything, a specific date. It just says they're working on it and we'll get it to you.
First part of June.
We have some.
Today, I don't know if you've had time to read it yet, but
Have they said another?
National League of Cities sent out a written statement today.
Okay, I didn't see that.
I've got it.
You may have, but I didn't have a chance to look at it.
That was the one this morning, right, Jane?
Yeah.
Yeah, I read that.
It looks to me like, other than those three infrastructure categories they named, they're talking about relief to the citizens going through the towns. And flowing to the citizens for relief
They
for
talked about that in that
businesses and.
virtual thing we saw.
And,
We don't even have a way to
services
track that.
for, medical assistance and those types of things that would be distributed through the town, but not, there wasn't a whole lot of flexibility
Right.
If we had a shortfall, if we were like somebody
Yeah.
that had a lot of tourism, and we had lost 25% of our tax income, we could have used it for that, but we can't.
You don't have water and sewer, so you didn't have lost revenue in that. So.
Yeah, and that's what it referred to.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I said, most of the things that I've
Yeah.
seen
Mhm.
doesn't really apply to us.
yeah.
I keep hearing, yeah, strict, yeah, radios, but it's not in any of the material.
What they sent out today, they've got, how the allocations will take place, and water, sewer, and broadband is still there,
We're getting broadband for free.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, we won't get nothing for that then, will we?
Probably this most recent, thing that came out today, it might be helpful, but I'm sure there's gonna be, more details, because there's also a level of people that are gonna be consultants and people to tell you how to spend the money and how to do things, and I'm sure that's part of the plan.
Actually, I did see an email I got today about somebody promoting for, I can help you go through the process of doing this. I didn't read all of it, but I got the gist of it.
Yeah.
Should know it's coming.
So, but anyway,
The county has hired a consultant, do you remember that from the mayor's?
and they were, the county hired a consultant that then will be somebody.
If they'll share him with the municipalities.
I think so. I think I got the impression that they're trying to involve the municipalities and everything, so that probably be our inside track to finding out more information. And they've already hired them, so that funding may do something for us. I don't know what, but I just know that. All right, next. You're sitting here not knowing what to do.
Waiting on Drew to pull a duck out of his hat with gold feathers on it.
We can always go to tab 12.
Madam Mayor?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we can come back. We don't have
Yeah.
to make a decision
We
tonight,
can go to tab
correct?
12.
I think we should do that. I don't think we
Finish
should.
going through the tab.
We can finish going through the tab, but I don't think we should make any rash decisions until
Right.
we can think about this and
Yeah.
until we get more information. I do not want to make a rush decision where we have over 30 days to make a decision.
Right.
So I would like to,
June 30th.
okay, that would be fine. Let's go through the tab,
This
but
just May.
I would
Right.
want to wait.
Tab 12 is streets and power bill fund.
Madam Mayor, the only issue I had there was that mower that was 24 years old, I think, right, Bill? For $10,000, needs constant maintenance, and I think you told me we spend $1,200 in maintaining this thing, and it's a 24-year-old zero-turn mower for $10,000. I'm surprised it even still runs.
There was two that were looking at.
That for two?
One was the vent track, one was one was adding the vent track and replacing the not quite old. And then the streets, it was replacing that 24-year-old one with a $10,000.
Didn't we just replace some mowers last year, or year before last, or buy some new ones?
We replaced two last year.
Older than this, Bruce? Oh,
About the same,
about the same age?
same vintage. That was a good year from over, it's 97.
Okay.
If we bought them last year, did we buy used ones?
These are not the same ones, these are different ones.
I was kind of confused for a minute. I was gonna say, how can it be one of the old ones if we just bought it? So what do we want to do here? What are we looking to do here?
Well, if we can afford it, need to replace it. But, or keep putting money into it, maintain it. Till it finally quits.
Probably comes a time when the parts aren't available.
I mean, it's almost eligible to be placed in the Smithsonian.
I don't know what's going on here. We never have trouble with a budget in my 20 years. We've not had a problem with the budget until this year, and I think we can thank Corona for that. Not the kind you drink either. Or at least we can blame it on that.
Madam Mayor, that's all I have from this section. If you want to move on, that's up to the
Anyone
board.
else have anything for this section? Okay, section 13 is sanitation.
We have, if you notice on the fee schedule, recommended to increase the sanitation fees because our third-party company is raising their fees by 3%. So we did an exact 3% increase in ours.
Mhm.
So you're talking 30-some cents a month?
It's going
Went
to
from
be,
2090, or it's up to 2090 from 2030
yeah,
60 cents,
a month.
yeah.
Is that the only thing that's in there? I didn't get back this far. I run out of time.
With the cost of fuels rising, have we budgeted enough for fuel?
we think so. If not, that's adjustments we can make during the year. Because
Okay.
that's not gonna be, that might be 500, 1,000 here, not
Yep,
big
okay.
dollars.
Okay, anything else in that tab? Anybody? All right, we're moving over to Parks and Rec.
Well, I'll break the ice here, Mayor, if you let me.
Sure.
There's one issue that we're going to have to address either sooner or later. And that's the basketball courts. If memory serves me correctly, as memory usually does, we've had a number of incidents on that basketball court. That's a safety issue for the community. And I emphasize the safety issue.
Shots fired one day.
I honestly, and I wanted to, and I talked about this last year, and I'm going to talk about it again, is that if we're going to open that basketball court, which I hope we do, because a lot of folks in Hope Mills like to hoop, then we need to fence it. And that's a 10-foot tall fence around that basketball court at about a $20,000 estimate. Because it's a safety issue, it's either do that or close the court. Because you're going to have a way to control it. It will have gates on it. They will be locked. And when they do, then no one will be permitted to go on there after the park closes, which will end a lot of these safety concerns that go on in that part of the park at night. Now, I don't want to see the basketball courts closed, not at all. I want to see them maintained in a safe manner that's not going to endanger anybody that comes there to play basketball. So that's a $20,000 fence that I believe the return on investment could possibly save personal injury or even human life.
Yes, ma'am. But the last time Commissioner Bellflower was over was gunfire, and it was in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
A fence wouldn't stop that.
Can we move it?
We could. We could move it, but where are you gonna move it to?
Madam Mayor, may I speak in on that?
Yes, sir.
We talked about closing this basketball court or moving it when Miss Kilgore was Parks and Rec Director.
Yep, yeah, Anita, yeah, when she was here.
And because of the funding that it was built with, we're not allowed to move it, was my understanding. Or close it.
There was, it was funded from a restricted fund, the way that Anita told us. We couldn't move it. It had to stay where it is. Because there were some thoughts about moving it half the tennis court and the other half the basketball court. And why in the world would you ever want to move it up behind those buildings? You wouldn't have any direct sight on it.
I don't move it in the police station parking lot. It's where it needs to be.
I
It's supposed to
mean-
be monitored.
Madam Mayor, well, my concern with the gunfire is the proximity within the playground.
And the,
Oh,
and the
yes.
families and small children that are there, and the walking trail. I think you've got so many opportunities for someone to get hurt. And the numbers that were out there, there was no way of regulating it. And there's, they're playing 5 on a goal on both sides, and I bet you there are 50 people there waiting for their turn or having issues sometimes. I know that in Wilmington, and I know that I think it was most recently in Whiteville, I know that they've had issues in their parks because there was a whole petition getting started to have them close the basketball courts. So the basketball courts, not just in Hope Mills, but other places, because of the crowds they attract. So if there's some ways of regulating the crowd, I don't believe that any type of funding that we received however many years ago, we'd have to worry about it being caught up in any kind of legal suit now. I think we'd be fine if we did have the funding to move it, but I think even with that, the funding to move it's going to be expensive.
Yes.
Madam Mayor,
Yeah.
I'd like to make a suggestion, if the board would go along with it, to ask Mr. Zell if he could look into that funding for the original basketball court to see if we're able to move it or close it, or maybe the marker already knows.
Well, I like to say, I don't, that's the first I've heard about funding being used to build it. Now, if it's LWCF, you can never move that basketball court. I mean, that funding, as long as we have a park there, it's very, very hard to get permission to move it. Because first you gotta go through the state with a very good reason why move it, but then you gotta go to federal. So state and LWCF is federal and state, so.
Can we find out if we have that funding? Or when it came from?
If funding paid for, if it's LWCF, you can't move the basketball court. It's very hard to.
But I think the tennis court falls into some of that same.
We could just find out how it was funded.
And in some of the old directors' papers, I did see where something, I thought it was the trail, but maybe it was the basketball court, was funded by LWCF. And once LWCF funds a project, you can't move it, and the cities or town, have to pay the money to keep them up. I mean, you gotta always have that.
Sounds about right.
Well, why can't-
that particular amenity?
Well, sir, this is going to sound, but where it's located and the age of the children that are out there, why can't you just drop the goals?
They are.
We did.
I mean, drop them.
Drop them down.
Don't take them. Drop them down so it can be used by elementary age children up to a certain age. Because if you drop the goals like they do when we attach those goals to have youth to play ball, we need to do something though, because I don't know how you're going to regulate it, but I have the same concern. I'm worried about the shots being fired, the angriness, because there's not enough room for a lot of people to play unless you can some kind of permit it so that there's just teams of 5 and 5 or whatever. But it is at a point that I think we've got to do something. And I don't have a solution, but I just know that if we're going to keep it, then we need to do some way of regulating
Well,
who's out there.
The gate will help. When we had the incident, in today's climate and the back and forth between the police officers and the people that were out there, you know, had we had a gate, we could immediately close the basketball court, tell everybody leave
Yep.
off, and to ensure they didn't come back later or continue to fight later on, we could have locked the gates and said,
Yep.
you know, the basketball courts are closed. I'm concerned about the children being in close proximity, if not by the violence potential, the language itself.
Yeah, the
But
language is
unfortunately,
awful.
they're side by side. But I
Yeah.
think the gate will help in as far as being able to close it in an emergency. That and then we've talked to Chris and Jim, who are our IT people, about cameras, because cameras will go a long way with when people won't tell us who it was. We can actually go back to that footage and see who the culprits were. And so we're working on that piece also.
Can
We
you have a
should've been
sign-up
using
sort of
cameras a
way
long time
so
ago.
you can govern who's out there?
Say it again?
Can there be some type of sign-up for the court so that,
We can look into it. You know,
I know
the
it's hard to
basketball
do.
crowd is a hard crowd to appease, because, you know, once we close the basketball courts, we did say, hey, you know, the building's available, so you can sign up here. We were charging $2, but because we weren't getting the people to come in to play basketball, we took the fee off and said, all you gotta do is come in and sign up, but you can use the basketball courts here while we renovate the basketball courts outside. And for whatever reason it is, I don't know if they don't want to be monitored or what have you, but they're reluctant to come inside the building and they want the outdoor court. So, you know, it's kind of, we tried to give it, whereas they don't have basketball outside, we gave them a nice cool place on the inside to play, and they haven't utilized that. So I
If
don't
they
know.
can't cuss and drink in there.
Yeah,
Right,
the
so-
problem with that is the crowd and the gate. If you all are saying that helps as a safety measure, the more the problem is the crowd on the side of the parking lot. I hate to see it is heavily utilized. I hate to see it not. You know, I don't want to take it away from people, but I am concerned because it's the marijuana smoking and stuff that goes on. I walk around there, I smell it, I know what's going on. So I think that's the reason why they don't want to come inside. But I definitely wouldn't want to put it back up without cameras, because this is the second shooting incident that we've had within, I know, since I've been on the board. And
Yeah.
I think both of them have been in broad daylight.
Yeah.
And let's just say, for the sake of argument, we did move the basketball court or take one half of the tennis court. On my computer, which was the old director's computer, I saw video footage of a full-out brawl on that tennis court, and nobody dared to break it up. That somebody had taken, I guess, cell phone footage of. So out of sight, out of mind. If we put the basketball court there, we
Yep.
probably have more of a problem too. So that's not really a solution either.
No, it's definitely not, because it's tucked up right behind that building.
Yep. So.
So that's really not an option. But back to what Commissioner Legg was saying, I know that years ago, back in probably 2004 or 5, this issue was brought up, and Anita, at that point in time, she told us that it couldn't be moved. Because I do believe the town at that point was trying to move it.
I think in the only grant that I know
Because of
of
the
in
funding.
in my years, LWCF. LWCF is really, really restrictive. Very hard to convince the state and the feds to allow you to move something that they gave you money to build. So
But don't you have the cameras out there now that pick up?
we have a
The
camera.
drinking
we
and-
have a camera now, and one of the problems, and we're dealing with that now. We have cameras, and we have a camera that can that gives us access over that area, but we have a squirrel problem that keeps chewing through the wire. And so right now, Jim and Chris are getting us
Rodents.
estimates on what it would cost to put the wire in conduit, because the squirrels don't like the conduit, but they love the sensation of the vibration on the teeth when they chew through the wires. And so we're looking at putting all our wires in conduit.
Just can't catch
So
a
right
break.
now, out of 5, I think 6 cameras, we only got 3 that are operational that we can actually look at, because the rest of the wiring's been damaged by squirrels.
LaMarco, what's your suggestion?
Well, seeing as how we can't move. It's not going to be a perfect solution, but to bring back an amenity that they've enjoyed for years, I would recommend, because we've already bought. We took down the old basketball goals, which broke when we tried to take it down anyway.
Mhm.
So we've already purchased new goals and new backboards. So we're ready to put the goals and the backboards back up again. I would just recommend fencing around it, and and filling in the patches where the low spots are, and You know, as far as the crowd, we may have to do a little bit. Right now, we have a person that comes in the morning and in the evening and patrols and walks around the park and, you know, help us deal with the vagrants hanging out in the shelters. And then, you know, we can add the basketball courts to that too, you know, just
Okay.
going out to monitor. And if we see anything illegal, you know, just call PD like we've been. If we see any marijuana smoking or any violent behavior over there. I mean, that's one thing that between my staff and park attendants, we can, you know, we can add that to our rotation.
And you can lock the gates.
And there's signage, you know, that
Yeah,
just
lock
like
them.
just like the parks close at a certain time. You know,
Lock
the
your gates.
basketball courts probably should be closed at dawn.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor,
Uh-huh, yes, sir.
the only problem you're gonna have with the fence, if you don't bury it a little bit in the ground, them guys are gonna come under it, and they're gonna end up tearing it up right there, where they can come under the fence. So, that fence is not as strong as you think it is. They can stretch it out of proportion. I don't know what the solution would be, unless you'd have the park attendant sitting right there with the police officer right beside of him. That's the only solution that I can think of, except I've got a camera sitting in Kentucky that has no wires to it, that sends a picture to this phone when it happens. It's called a covert. It's up there taking pictures of deer and squirrel and my brother and whoever else might be up there right now.
Something that we did have in Greenville, if you were at management level, on our computers, we had access to all the cameras in all the parks and even the streets. We had access to all the cameras. And as a deterrent, we told people, hey, you're under surveillance. We had the signage there to say, we're looking at you. And made quite a few arrests by real time looking at the cameras. And the PD and Parks and Recreation being able to look at the cameras in real time and say, hey, I'm looking at somebody. I mean, we've caught people smoking marijuana during the daytime at Town Common and called the police. We've caught people doing donuts on the baseball fields, and we're able to zoom in and see who the person was and get license plates. And so we were able to prosecute quite a few people. But you know, we're gonna have to get our cameras operational, and we're gonna have to demand that we get access to them. And you know, I recommended to IT that, you know, Maxie, Stephen, Kessinger, Keith Bryan, and myself, we're the four to deal with, you know, ground maintenance, that we be able to have access to the cameras to be able to go back in and when there's vandalism or when there's incidents, you know, we can actually go back and look at the, you know, and along with PD, have access to the video footage. So having the videos and letting people know they're being surveillance, I think that's another deterrent too.
The advantage of the wireless cameras, you can plant up high on the pole. They have a hard time climbing that, and it'll send the picture right to
And
you.
we're looking at that too. The only thing about that is I found out here, whereas you know, most utility companies, we haven't. There was an agreement with Duke Power. You got to get permission from them to put cameras on their poles. I don't think that'll be an issue, but we were told we got to get permission from them. We got several poles that we can actually put wireless cameras on, but we got to get permission from Duke Power to be able to put cameras on their lights.
Because all those lights are Duke.
Yes.
Can you monitor the parking lot as well?
Yep.
That's the only way that I would feel more comfortable. I think I feel more comfortable with that than the fences, but that's the only way that I would feel more comfortable.
It goes 24 hours a day, a camera does. Where do you go today that you're not covered by a camera?
Not too many.
Hardly nowhere. From the mall to town hall to the police department, hardly nowhere that you can go anymore that you're not covered with a camera. So,
Madam Mayor, while Lamarco's up here, I got another issue. Can I ask him?
Sure.
Lamarco, also in your section, are we required to have ADA compliant water fountains in the park? You requested 4 of them. So,
Eventually, yeah. I mean, if you got water fountains, a certain amount of them, probably at least half, should be ADA compliant. I don't think
do we
any-
have any there now?
I don't think so.
No, the answer is no.
And they're outdated, yeah.
Yeah, the answer is no. So that's the reason I was going to ask you, again, are we required to have ADA water fountains in the park.
I think we are.
That would be
It's an amenity.
$7,600 for 4 of them,
Correct.
right?
Yes, sir.
They give them something else to tear up.
Well, if they're required, they gotta be there.
That wasn't funded, by the way.
That wasn't funded, right. That wasn't funded. That's the reason I was asking, Drew, are they required? Because if they are, then we've gotta fund them.
But it's something.
We have so long a time to do it, don't we?
Right now, immediately. As long as we keep progressing with our ADA updates,
That's right.
it doesn't have to be everything in one budget year.
No, but we don't have any there now.
Right. But we
So-
have a lot of ADA things that aren't.
We may not put all 4 in, maybe 1 a year. And if we do that, then that's 1,900.
We have done a lot of ADA stuff the last year or two before COVID set in. Complete with sidewalks around and walking areas around the dugouts and bleachers at the ballparks, sidewalks from Rockfish School into the ballpark that people can walk on and actually leave the parking lot and never have to touch the sand and go to watch a ball game or a function that Lamarco and them have done the last several months, year and a half.
And the question you're asking, Commissioner Bellflowers, that's why we really want to get the donations account and sponsorships going. In the past, when we've had budget shortfalls, we've used funds like that to pay for dog park improvements, to pay for amenities like benches and water fountains. So where there's a shortfall in the general fund and the budget we get each year, the donations account was the account that we always look to pay for those things.
Yeah, and I'm glad you answered that too, Lamarco, because I know it's new items on both sides. So I just wanted an understanding about how they work together.
If done right, we'll actually be able to get an amenities package through donations. You know, specifically if a donor says that's where they want the money to be spent at. You know, so a lot of times donors will specify that they want improvements to the dog park or they want a water fountain, but you know, they want a small plaque at the bottom saying this came from the Friends of the Greenways or whatever. And so that's kind of what we had in mind as far as sponsorships and donor programs.
And it was probably really successful in Greenville, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
In fact, we got tired of naming everything. Just about everything had a name on it. But that was a way to pay for some of the amenities.
Are we settled here where we're asking Mr. Dell, or do we need to ask her, Lamarco, to come back and tell us what the rules is on if there's any rules on closing or removing the basketball court?
I'll go back and look. I have the old director's documents, and it's easy to go back and either call NC State and find out whether the town received LWCF funding, and then see what was funded. I can use the contacts we have now because the same group that administers PARTEF is also LWCF, so they'll be able to go back through their records and see what the town received in land and water conservation funding, and if indeed it was using the basketball court, that's a true statement. We can't move it. And you know, we'll probably if anybody was to come down this way, we're probably getting a little bit of trouble. We haven't been keeping it up. You know, we can use it too.
Because eventually.
Can we have a plan for the basketball courts that we can let the public know what our plan is? In other words, the people that have had concerns, if we're gonna put the fence up, we're gonna put a gate up, and how we're gonna supervise, how we're gonna make it better so that I'm walking the walking trail and I'm not afraid, or I'm out there with my children, I'm not worried about it. Because the first time you hear shots, then there is an element out there of I'm not going back to that park.
Well,
So I'm just thinking if we have a plan. And then the other question I have that you can think about is, what is gonna be our answer about the splash pad?
Well, the answer about the splash pad, I understand we don't have the funding to actually do the splash pad this year, but what I've asked for is at least the funding to get us through construction documents, so at least we have a set of shovel-ready documents for whatever funding comes available, be it through the regular budget or a bond referendum. We have the funding there, and we're not waiting on design. We have the design. It's already going through the site plan approval process. So theoretically, this fall, we'll have a set of permitted plans that whenever the fund's available for the next 5 years, we have all the permits and everything to go ahead and build it when the funding becomes available.
Do we have any idea what the other splash pads in Cumberland County cost?
Depending on what you get, I know the one in Spring Lake was around $350,000, closer to $400,000 because they had to pay for, well, through their own desire, they paid for a restroom and they had to do it their own standalone pump house. We don't have to do either of those things. We have a restroom, we have a pump house, but we're still looking at, well, you all have the estimate. We're still looking around $370,000 to build a splash pad and then the site work associated with it.
Yeah, that's another another thing that people thought we were getting, I think, based on the conversation we had last year during budget time.
Madam Mayor, I think we were also going to include the all-inclusive playground with this, correct?
Right, and so
It's
I
packaged.
did ask McAdams to generate a fee to go ahead and design the playground, but it'd be
Right.
the same as splash pad. We get a design, we just won't have the money to build it, but we'll be ready for it if a bond passes, or I'm currently looking at LWCF as a playground renovation source for the playground, but we'll still have to come up with a match next year. So they've actually increased the funding available for land water conservation. We can't apply for that grant, but we still, I think it is if it's not a 30-70, it might be a 50-50 match for LWCF. I have to look into it, but the funds are available, and I actually talked to my representative about applying for LWCF for either that playground or Herring Park, but it sounds like this playground at Municipal Park is probably more pressing at the moment than Herring Park, so that's what we'll look into.
Okay. Anyone else have questions for Mr. Morrison?
No, ma'am.
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
all righty. Tab, which is, through Parks and Rec, you've got the other budgets in there. If you don't have any other questions, we can move to tab 15, and this is stormwater. Any questions or thoughts or concerns about stormwater?
The only question I have, Mayor, is what's going to happen to the old street sweeper? Does it even run?
You interested in it?
I was gonna let Bruce get that one, but I'll get this one. So the old sweeper does run,
Okay.
but we are spending a tremendous amount of money on parts. It was not really designed for sandy pickup. It's designed more for leaf litter and mulch. When it was purchased, it was the latest and greatest thing. It was a newer model of the kind, so I'm sure that that was something that Hector and Melanie purchased, so it was before anybody here. But basically, the housing on the inside is just getting torn up with sand and the debris that we're picking up, the stuff that we're seeing on a daily basis. So the streets department has gone through multiple product reviews, and they have actually had them come out. They did what, 4? So we had 4 come out and do demos. Bruce, myself, Tyler, Don, and then the streets folks, those guys that will actually be operating it, all went through and talked about it. This is something that we're gonna have to replace it anyway, and we use it as part of our pollution prevention and good housekeeping portion of our NPDES permit. So that's why we're sticking this in stormwater, because we do use it for our permit purposes. The old one, we discussed keeping it. That will be a decision that I guess Don will ultimately get to make, because it could be used for a backup, but if we can get it in working condition to where we're not having to spend tremendous amounts of money on it
Okay.
every year, it may be functional, otherwise it will probably, I don't know, there may even be an option for us to trade it, depending on which sweeper they go with. The one that they picked was within our budgeted amount, but I'm not sure if there was a trade available or not. And Cindy can
Okay.
deals that as well, so some other town may be able to use it.
Okay. Yeah, that was kind of where I was going, what was gonna happen to it, whether we would keep it or trade it or,
We would like to, I think, make the best decision for the town as far as whether it could be used as a backup, and if so, then there's always the space issue. Public Works yard is pretty full of equipment, and there may not be room unless there's an expansion, so we'll have to look at that aspect of it as well.
thank you, Beth. Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor
Any other
Warner.
questions?
Yes?
I'd like to ask Beth one question.
Yes, ma'am.
You had requested, $350,000 for professional services, and they
Yes.
turned it down. What was this for?
So, we actually discussed that, the proposal with, John Soka's office as far as that money, that was the one thing that he did fund, so Drew put it in, and then we took it out in hopes that it will, John Soka will come through and help us out with their state budget, so, I think what the plan is for that, we would do the sweeper, and if we need to push the update into the following budget year, we can do that. If it gets funded, then we get both.
Okay. Thanks.
So we're working, our master plan that we are working off of now is about 10 years old. And it's still good, it's just, I feel like some of the things in there, I've been here for quite a few years now, and some of the areas that they have listed for flooding, I've not ever seen, not even during Matthew, there was no flooding. So that's why we think it's time to update it, plus the costs are significantly lower than what the cost of construction and engineering is today, so.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right.
No.
All right, is there any recommendation for, Mr. Holland and our town manager? And do we come back on, but prior to our June meeting? Or do we, what is your thoughts on where we are in budget? Recommendations or requests?
What's the closest meeting we have to the end of the budget year?
Our next meeting is June
June 7th.
7th.
And we have one later that month, right?
And then we have one June,
Public hearing tonight, we voted to have a public hearing for the budget on the 7th.
But can we do the final touches on this, the last meeting in June, then have the public hearing?
You can
Or
have
is
a
that
public
too
hearing
much?
on the 7th and then vote on the budget on the 21st.
And you can schedule other workshops, you know,
This is the first time in a long time I've had any questions in the back of my head. And I think it's because of the time that we're trying to do this in.
Why don't we try it again at 5 o'clock before the regular meeting on June 7th?
and then have the hearing after that?
And have the hearing after that?
Can we do that?
Let's just stay on target of what we're doing, but come back again, 5 o'clock, and hash it
That's what
out.
I was talking about a while ago. That's the reason I was trying to find out
Just
what
finish
the
it up.
latest date was we could do it, so.
It's a public hearing, and I don't know what your tradition is here, but I know in Aberdeen, I never had one person in 14 budgets that I did there. Not one person, citizen showed up to ask a question. The public hearing was very short.
Yeah, I
don't
think
know- I don't know what you guys.
We don't know. Some years we've had people, some years we haven't, so it's one of those cases. I mean, by the attendance we're having at our meetings, I would think that it would be probably not very many people.
I'd say 5, let's get back together at 5 on June 7th. See
I
where
agree
we,
with
and see
Mr.
where we
Bellflowers.
go. And see where we go.
Okay, 5 PM. June 7th.
Yep.
Is that a consensus or we need a motion?
That can be a consensus. We'll do 5 PM, June 7th. This just continue, we'll recess and continue. Is that what we're gonna do?
Yep.
Yeah, and that
Yep.
way we don't have to do.
You don't have to do public or anything. All right, now, as far as the only recommendation that we have is to add the inspections position.
Well, y'all had a consensus set.
No, it hasn't been a
Anything
consistent
to
since,
change?
no. So is there anything that you want him to change and find what he can take away, so that when we come back June 5th, there's something for us different to look at?
I don't believe we have consensus tonight on anything, Mayor. I think that may be that we need to take the next 2 weeks and think about it. Let it simmer.
Okay, so, Mr. Holland, will you be prepared to, whatever they simmer, to come up with a solution? I think that.
Just take the expenditure side, and revenues too.
Gee.
Let it simmer,
Okay.
yeah, okay.
All right, so at this time, I am recessing this meeting until June 7th at 5 PM.